Welcome to week 5 and welcome to Stats versus Film. This is the flagship show where we take everything that happened on the field, rewatched every single game from week 4, then dive into the spreadsheets, the underlying metrics, even the statistics in the hopes of finding the answers for you to win your matchups here in week 5. Hayden, I was looking at my rosters already, stunned, punch in the face that we already have bye weeks coming up. Crazy.
Yeah, 4 teams on bye, and then in my super flex league, I got Lamar Jackson, Brock Purdy, so I'm having a lot of fun. So we'll talk about Dylan Gabriel plenty because somebody might be on the waiver wire hunting.
Yeah, another week of NFL football means another week of injuries, means fantasy football gets turned on its head along with depth chart changes. Again, this is the show that we talk about every single team, some more than others, but we kick things off with the top 10 headlines, and that starts with the Miami Dolphins. Talk about injuries. There's 2 things to go through here, but the first one is the massive in Tyreek Hill, who was having a heck of a game, and now you will not see him for the rest of 2025, and we'll see about 2026. A dislocated knee that comes with multiple knee ligament tears on top of that. Hayden, Tyreek Hill was looking like a fine pick before this. What should we do moving forward with this Dolphins offense? And is there a 1-to-1 replacement on this team?
Absolutely not a 1-for-1 replacement on the team. I thought that Tyreek Hill's tape was actually pretty dang impressive this year. I thought that his athleticism was crazy. And like, this injury, it's just a reminder of how fast these players are moving on the football field. Like, it's hard to see, but when I was working for the Chargers, I watched Tyreek Hill up in person. Like, these guys are flying so damn fast. Like, these fluky injuries do happen. It's just a bummer. But for the Miami Dolphins, after Tyreek Hill left, if you're just looking at the per route numbers, Jalen Waddle 31% targets per route. So everything's kind of cleared the way for Jalen Waddle to get back into the every week fantasy starter tier. No Jonnu Smith from the offseason helps out. And then Jalen Waddle is going to be the clear-cut top target in the offense. Mike McDaniel, after the injury, somebody asked him, like, hey, who's the 1-for-1 replacement? He said, this is going to be a committee approach to replace that. And it's not just including the wide receiver group, which I thought was notable, which obviously means Devon Achane plenty, but also Darren Waller was the other big standout player from this game.
We'll put a pin in the Darren Waller conversation here in a moment. Just first in the wide receivers. Right now, Jalen Waddle is the wide receiver 27. He was drafted as the wide receiver 29 when many of your leagues closed out there. He is the wide receiver 12 in terms of average money per year in terms of his contract. So far, I don't think the Dolphins have gotten their money's worth when it comes to that. They have a really difficult time just simply incorporating him in the offense on a week-to-week basis in comparison to Tyreek Hill. They need to get their money's worth the rest of the way. And maybe he will be, put into motion a bit more often in these stacked formations, these crossing routes over the middle of the field. That is the closest one. I do want to bring up Malik Washington, who is a preseason superstar when both Waddle and Tyreek would sit out of those preseason games. Literally about 70% of the targets were going in Malik Washington's belly. And he was, again, also being used on these like horizontal full speed movement things. I do want to note that, at least to my eyeballs, when Tyreek Hill left the game and the Dolphins use, multiple personnel groupings with multiple tight ends and they get Alec Ingold, a fullback, in there, it was not Malik Washington in there in 2 wide receiver sets. It was our beloved Nick Westbrook-Akine, Mr. Regression Touchdown himself. So who knows if that sticks with a full week of practice moving forward, but that's how I would think of it, is Jalen Waddle as the primary, and then NWI as a secondary, and then 3 wide receiver sets, Malik Washington pops in.
I do think Malik Washington will absorb some of the manufactured touches, but not enough to get into like the fantasy mix, maybe in a really deep league during bye weeks and stuff. It'll probably pop up for a couple nice games, but I think there's not enough volume to kind of pass around because Achane is going to get 15-20% targets. And then I think that the Darren Waller stuff was actually very real from this last game. He looked pretty good. Like in the first quarter, it was a 3rd and 5. They motioned him across, man coverage, just crosses the defender's face for a chunk gain. Obviously, that was a beautiful touchdown to get his feet in against, Sauce Gardner. That was just beating Sauce Gardner right from the jump. That was super impressive. And then obviously the runaway route for the second score. So he was not a full-time player in his return. I don't think that we should expect him to be a complete full-time player, but I do think we will get more 2 tight end sets where he's operating as basically a wide receiver. And I think that the 2 people that are going to get more involved than they already were in the offense, it's going to be Jalen Waddle gets a big bump. And then I think that Darren Waller is actually the biggest beneficiary with Tyreek Hill not going to be part of the lineup. So I'm actually very intrigued. Darren Waller, 9.3 expected fantasy points in his debut. And I think that he should be picked up on the waiver wire this week. And I do think that there's a chance he can be a top 12 fantasy tight end moving forward.
Yeah, only played 28% of snaps. It shocked me how good he looked because he barely practiced during training camp. There was even comments when Mike McDaniel was asked about him of, hey, this thing has to happen soon or we'll see what happens. And when a head coach says things like that, my brain instantly jumped to, well, I don't think Darren Waller is going to be on this roster moving forward. And man, I was wrong. Like, he steps in here and just makes a difference in comparison. It's very different to the stuff, though, that Jonnu Smith was doing. So I don't want to like copy paste what a tight end did last year in this offense versus what Darren Waller is. He's more of like a go up and get it basketball high point catcher in one-on-one situations, whereas Jonnu Smith truly was like manufactured screen stuff, swings behind the line of scrimmage, horizontal more so. But they need both skill sets. So obviously Darren Waller signed with the Dolphins because of his former position coach in Frank Smith, who was the offensive coordinator for the Miami Dolphins. And to me, his snaps will only go up from here. I'm not saying he's going to score 2 touchdowns every single week, but at the same time, they lose their primary pass catcher. So this is a team who's already second in the league in terms of an 80% red zone touchdown success rate. That is nutso stuff. And Darren Waller can be a huge part of that red zone offense moving forward.
Yeah, especially if they don't have like the rushing success, like when the field gets condensed down in the red area. I do think that Waller's going to be like a very big part of that offense. Last night I had from the Dolphins, what a game for Mike McDaniel. I mean, all the trick stuff, but also just like getting to it, actually throw the ball to the perimeter. Tyreek was wide open for most of the game as well. We got Jalen Waddle on some nice touches over the middle as well. So I was super impressed. They got Darren Waller using him to the best ability. So to me, man, I just am always pretty dang impressed with the Mike McDaniel offense. I think that he's making the most out of a fairly limited quarterback with continuously one of the bottom 3 worst offensive lines out there. And the fact that they even pop up for like top 10 numbers at any point, I think is super impressive. So big shout out to him.
And that's not even mentioning Devon Achane, who's the running back 8 overall right now in fantasy football and has not scored fewer than 12.6 fantasy points in a single game this season. Final note, this kind of feels like a sunset on the career of Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill, one of the best fantasy football wide receivers of the last decade at the very least. It kind of feels in a similar fashion as to when we said fantasy football goodbye to Antonio Brown. So I just wanted to call that out because who knows for a speedy, even physical wide receiver, what this type of knee injury is going to do for his future. Yeah.
Probably not even in 2026. Just a brutal injury for a 30-plus-year-old. But I mean, he averaged like 90 yards over like 6 seasons on 2 different teams. Like he's one of the best wide receivers of the decade.
New York Jets are next, their opponent. This one's fascinating because the spreadsheets liked what the New York Jets did in this game. My eyeballs really didn't. I mean, they had the second best success rate in week 4 in terms of offense. And what that means basically is first and second downs, they picked up half the yards that they needed. Third and fourth downs, they got all the yards that they needed. Again, when you look at Justin Fields' passing chart, he's basically throwing the football at 5 yards 80% of the time, and that's it. So they were a success rate monster, Hayden. But again, in terms of overall explosives that you can count on a weekly basis, in terms of a consistent passing attack with rhythm and identity, to me at least, there's a lot to be left here.
There definitely was, but I do think this was like still a decent game for the Jets themselves. I think the opponent is really, really, bad as well. So that's of note. But the Fields touchdown was ridiculous. Like there's only maybe a couple of quarterbacks ever that it would have scored on that one. But really, to me, there was a couple standout guys. One, Garrett Wilson, the touchdown grab was obviously phenomenal. The offensive pass interference that they called on him was super ticky-tacky. That should have been another touchdown for him. So he's obviously having some big explosive plays in this offense. They got Mason Taylor going as well, and they said that they were going to do that. A lot of it was just kind of like zone feel stuff, nothing like really one-on-one, but that was a pretty good game for a rookie tight end. And then I wanted to ask you about what you're seeing from Breece Hall, because there was a couple opportunities in this one where he had the chance to kind of open it up in space and like never really like fully got there. And he kind of like, I'm not saying was running with a limp, but he did not look like one of like the 10 best running backs out there. And obviously with Braylon Allen having that knee injury and that fumble early on, I was hoping that Breece Hall, I would like see that extra gas. And for whatever reason, like he seems like to be like super athletic on one game, and then like the next game seems to be playing through something. So I'm not sure if you saw similarly on tape.
I think in this game, either his second or third carry, he took a pretty hard fall or like a knee slide along the sideline. You saw him wincing on the sideline, and I don't know if he was ever the same after that. I hear you, and Armand Membu looks great at right tackle. And look, right now, Breece Hall, I believe, is the running back 25. He's had 2 13-plus week games and then 2 fewer than 7-point week games. And now you move from a 3-person pie to a 2-person pie because Braylon Allen, and specifically in terms of high value touches near the goal line, was about to score, then fumbles and gets it punched out. And then the next kickoff nearly fumbles and gets his MCL taken out, and he's headed to IR. So while Breece Hall might not look as explosive as he did in week 1, Hayden, his share of the pie should definitely go up. And to me, it's even more magnified that almost certainly he's going to see more carries inside the 10 and inside the 5 once they get there. Now he'll be battling Justin Fields in that area too, but what he'll still probably lose is that pure passing down work, because that's where Isaiah Davis does his best. But who even knows? Like maybe they just don't want Breece inside the 10-yard line, and that also goes to Isaiah Davis. I'm just guessing here.
Yeah. Who knows? I think that Breece Hall is obviously a big stock up just because you're removing Braylon Allen, but it's just curious. He just seems to be like in and out of like being Breece Hall versus a shell of himself. Did want to mention this in the past game to go to your point about all the check down stuff. Only it's the Jets and the Eagles complete outliers in how many pass attempts they're even attempting beyond 15 air yards down the field. So like, look at like where the Cowboys and the Bucks are and stuff. And then you have the Jets and the Eagles way over there. So that's just not going to help. And they're also dead last in neutral pass rate this season.
That brings me to my point where I understand the success rate stuff. We cite it often with a bunch of these teams, but at the same time, that's who they want to be in terms of just churning out these yards and sustaining these long drives. At the same time, 13 and 14 play drives give you more opportunities to make a mistake, like more opportunities to fumble, or for them, more opportunities to have penalties. I mean, 13 penalties for 101 yards here. There were other, coaching deficiencies that were on full display. The muffed kickoff, obviously, and then the same guy down to punt and fair caught it at his own 2-yard line. Like, again, if you're just trying to grind out these long drives and then your quarterback is basically like a no. Oh, there's a big play just when you least expect it. And that's tough to count on, even if it is Justin Fields, which we absolutely love in fantasy football. Then you basically have to be perfect on the fringes. And right now the Jets are anything but perfect on the fringes. And this defense looks way worse than it did last year, despite having many, and I mean many, of the same pieces that Robert Saleh and Jeff Ulbrich had.
Yeah, the Jets defense, I'll just call it straight up bad.
They're 0-4, and that's how they wanted to play a football game against a really bad defense that we saw on Monday night, and then they still didn't win. So we'll see. I mean, they've had 2 close games. We know week 1, and they gave that one away to Pittsburgh Steelers. So I just am not sure how much that is going to change for this team. Like, this is their identity.
This felt like kind of the expectations. There's gonna be some wild moments from everybody involved, and then like the down to down consistency just like not going to be good enough to like win enough football games this year.
Other Monday Night Football game, Denver Broncos first. J.K. Dobbins, the first 100-plus yard rusher in a Broncos uniform in the last 38 games. They put a bully session on the Cincinnati Bengals defense, and that allowed them to play Dobbins for 36 snaps and rookie R.J. Harvey for 33 snaps, and he performed as a top 15 scoring running back because of a wide open receiving touchdown at the end.
Yeah, this was good for both of them. The offense is still just being kept alive by their offensive line, which performed very well once again. Lots of different types of runs from Sean Payton too. Like both of these guys were running it up the middle, then also having opportunities to show off their speed, which I think is both of them their best traits collectively from the backfield. After the game, they said they wanted to get Dobbins and Harvey like more like drives. It didn't play out where like one guy gets a drive, but they would get like multiple plays in a row to try to build up some chemistry. And obviously that's going to help RJ Harvey stay on the field a little bit more than he did previously. So that was a season high, 15.3 expected half PPR points. Obviously, he was aided because late in the game, he got like the last drive, and obviously he was left wide open, and they're not always just going to be beating teams, 28-3 or whatever it was. So this is good to see that RG Harvey looked the part. J.K. Dobbins also looked the part. So I think it's going to be kind of status quo, 1A, 1B with Tyler Beatty kind of hanging out on 2-minute drills.
The quote that you're referring to is one thing we did different on Monday. There are certain tags that put either one in, but we gave them a series, and that helped them both. From Sean Payton, quote, "It's easier to call plays, and both of them got in good rhythms. Those guys both ran hard. I thought we blocked them well."
Yes.
I am not saying that J.K. Dobbins should be losing snaps at all. He's playing great football. But at the same time, I can highlight that I thought RJ Harvey looked quite good in this game. And he definitely does not have the, we're going to bounce it outside the tackles issues. He was staying very patient, I thought, between the tackles. And then there were 2 plays that they called specifically for him. The one was, that route down the rail that Bo Nix fires a pass. It hits him on his fingertips and he can't come down with it. That would have been a huge chunk gain, if not a touchdown. And then a former high school recruit quarterback in RJ Harvey gets a wildcat carry that they motion out of at the goal line. And that's the one he has to bounce up because Geno Smith fills the lane that he's hoping to go into. I wouldn't be surprised if we see him get a wildcat pass towards the later end of this year, just because they're kind of setting it up with that one play.
Yeah, he's feeling a little bit more like the Joker because the Evan Ingram stuff is not working out at all. I mean, get your toe in. That was insane. And then he had that other drop there as well. So he's just like not a focal point of the offense, not a full-time player still for Evan Ingram. Last guy we need to talk about here to me is just Courtland Sutton.
Yep.
I looked it up, 50 plus yards and a touchdown since 2023 when he like fully broke out after that injury. He has 15 games of that. Which is like right there, third most in the league with all your favorite superstars. So 50 for a touchdown is Mr. Courtland Sutton. And on that one, really nice. There was a safety hang out right in the middle of the end zone. And he was just like buying himself just enough time, breaking that out before cutting back in. So just a veteran play, and Bo Nix looking a little bit more comfortable and had like truly all day long to throw passes in this one.
Wide receiver 11, Courtland Sutton right now. We get a great comment from Pat is doing stuff on X that quote, "Courtland Sutton is exactly the guy I would have passed on in recent years in drafts before taking the quote, eat your vegetables advice from Josh and Hayden. He's so damn consistent. Great shout, fellas." Hayden, sometimes vanilla is exactly what you need.
To me, he's not even vanilla. He just mosses everybody. I don't know. He's throwing guys off.
It's because he's old and not one of these young wide receivers.
Yeah,
that's what I
get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah. Just like many of you, I am a member at a gym. I typically side with HIT classes. There's child watch involved. So oftentimes in the 9:30 a.m. class, lots of 30, 40-ish year old women are involved, and they run absolute laps around me. And when I'm done the next day and the next day, I'm incredibly sore. So what I need to look into is Fitbod, because Fitbod creates a personalized workout routine based on our goals, my goals, fitness level, and available equipment. Workouts actually adapt to your growth. So each workout is challenging enough to push you to make progress. I mentioned being sore. Well, Fitbod also tracks your muscles recovery so you can avoid burnouts and keep your momentum going. Level up your workout by joining Fitbod today to get your personalized workout plan. Get 25% off your subscription or try the app for free for 7 days at fitbod.me/the show. That's FITBOD.me/the show. Cincinnati Bengals, their opponent. There's a lot to go into. Let's do the non-Jamar Chase items first. Okay. Chase Brown right now is the running back 32. And Hayden, to me, sometimes, I'm not saying people are only citing these things, but at times I think too often we look at snap shares and, opportunity shares and all this stuff. Chase Brown was still getting all of that he got last year, but it doesn't matter because this team cannot function. They cannot get first downs. He's getting no rushing room. And again, even despite playing 80+% of the snaps, he's running back 32 on the season. Any thoughts by you?
The last two games without Burrow, 11 and 8.5 expected half PPR points. So he's on the field a ton, but if you're not getting down to the red area, it doesn't really matter. And then all of the explosiveness are just not going to be there when, you know, teams can kind of focus and clamp down on the entire offense. The offensive line is a stone cold disaster, and Chase Brown's not good enough to dig him out of the hole. So he's like one of the least efficient running backs in my model, and his usage is down 6, 7, 8 spots off of his previous high. So, I guess he's like the running back 32 in my weekly rankings and stuff, but there's some committee guys that I think I would be playing over Chase Brown. The one note I did want to mention, this is going to be the bottom of what we saw from the Bengals. You face the Vikings and then the Broncos. Like, we should have full blown panics, and then we should recalibrate and talk about how easy their schedule is for the rest of the season, and how you're not going to face these two ludicrous defenses from the last 2 weeks. So I think that Chase Brown and T. Higgins, I'm like most fearful of. And then I'm willing to buy low on Jamar Chase coming up just based off the schedule and what I saw from them this last night.
So we talk about sometimes model breakers, like if one of these running backs had a expected rank of 32, but he was performing as, 16 overall, then that's someone who breaks models. They do that because either they're really good, they're having fluky plays, or they're on really good teams.
Yep.
Chase Brown is the opposite of that,
Yes.
right? His expected rank is 16, and despite all his volume and everything that he's getting, it's being tanked because he's on a terrible team, and so he's running back 32 right now.
Yep. So yeah, all these charts, you can kind of see the players underperforming, and Chase Brown right here is like the guy standing out the most. So it's just an untenable situation behind this offensive line, and it's like not going to get better. Like there's not somebody that they're like waiting for to break out and stuff. Like this is like just the bad offensive line that Joe Burrow was going to work around, and then even if like Russell Wilson or Jameis Winston, you pick Kirk Cousins, none of those quarterbacks that would be coming over are good enough or mobile enough to overcome this offensive line too. So like maybe like they get a slight upgrade, but there's not going to just be this like massive turnaround here. So like we have to like talk about this at the margins. So I think like T. Higgins will have some like jump ball moments, but his consistency's gone. Chase Brown's explosiveness is going to be completely gone. So like to me, like the fantasy conversation is like truly only about one guy. It's like, what do we do with Jamar Chase?
Well, T. Higgins is wide receiver 59 right now. Since we've covered those two names, let's talk about Jamar Chase. You cited the schedule, okay? They just faced the Minnesota Vikings, who are great versus pass rushes, especially defenses, or especially offenses that are, quarterback by backups.
Yes.
And then it's the Denver Broncos with their pass rush against this offensive line and Patrick Surtain. Coming up for this team, it is the Detroit Lions and then the Green Bay Packers. Those are the next two. So I sent you some names ahead of time on if you would trade Jamar Chase for these guys straight up. All right. So Jamar Chase right now is wide receiver 21. Would you trade him for Quentin Johnson, who's wide receiver 4 right now?
I would put that one in about the same tier. I think I would keep Jamar Chase though.
Would you do it for Keenan Allen, who's wide receiver 13 right now?
I want Jamar Chase.
Then I'm already have my answer moving forward. Debo Samuel, who's wide receiver 10 right now on a much better offense.
Now that one I think is pretty close because Debo looks really good and that offense is pretty functional. So I'll say that's like about the same tier as well. And I think I will take my chances and continue with Jamar Chase.
Jamar Chase or Nico Collins, who's wide receiver 20 right now?
Nico Collins for sure.
Okay. Jamar Chase or Jalen Waddle, who now has potentially a new role and is wide receiver 27 right now?
Wow, that one's close. I think I'll go Waddle, and I'll view Waddle as a top 24 wide receiver moving forward. And then I think I'll put Jamar Chase as a top 24 wide receiver moving forward as well. And I think that I'll just call I think that Jamar Chase, for a lot of people, I would call him more of a buy low. Like I think the bottom is in, and this isn't even disagreeing with what you were saying in our previous rankings episodes when I think consensus rankings last week was like wide receiver.
They had him
7.
as wide receiver 5, and he has never only one time Jamar Chase has finished as a top 30 scoring wide receiver with Jake Browning at quarterback over 8 games.
For sure. And I had him like in the 20s, and that was in a really bad situation. I think it's going to get a little bit better. This last game I was watching it, in crucial situations, the safety was also just like double teaming him. And then it's against Patrick Surtain. So I just don't think that every team's going to be able to do that. And the schedule, especially like in the fantasy playoffs and stuff, if you can get there, it really opens up. And I think this Lions team's it's a team that you really can't run the ball on them, and you can pass the ball a ton. So I do think that if you're going to call Jamar Chase a buy low at any point, it would be this week. And I think it might be worth just a trade offer to that team, just because that owner might be fully panicking and not viewing him even as like a top 30 wide receiver. And to me, like rest of the season, I would call him a top 24 wide receiver, not a top 10 one, but somewhere kind of in that wide receiver 2 mix.
Do you think as pitiful of a performance as it was on Monday, Zac Taylor getting nervous for his job security, even with, making a Super Bowl previously, could this force them with how bad they were to make a quarterback move?
I don't know why they wouldn't rule that out. Like, it makes sense to me. I mean, the context is Lamar Jackson's now out for the next couple of weeks, and they're 1-3. The rest of the division, like, to me, is like still like, it sounds crazy, but it's relatively up for grabs if they can either, get Jake Browning to feel a little bit more comfortable, or they go get a quarterback upgrade. But I think there are some guys available in the quarterback market that would like help Jamar Chase and T. Higgins out. And it would be, I feel like you'd feel silly if you traded Jamar Chase away. They made a trade for a quarterback, and all of a sudden it's not going to be a good offense, but it's a serviceable one with one of the best wide receivers in the game. I feel like that would just be kind of silly.
I am still nervous of these next 2 weeks. Like the Lions defense, while they don't have Patrick Surtain, I do think like they can roll a safety over top, and then Aiden Hutchinson and this pass rush can get after it a little bit. And again, I understand the Packers just got torched by Dak Prescott, but Dak Prescott just this much better than Jake Browning. Like, just so to me, it's not just, hey, does this team have a cornerback that can match up with Jamar Chase? It's okay, how is this offensive line going to hold up to this offense, to this pass rush? And we know the Cowboys one played above and beyond any expectations against the Packers. And even when they did get home, Dak was rifling passes down the field. And I just don't know if Jake Browning can do that. So like one of the names I was going to ask you about is Chris Olave, who is wide receiver 32 right now. But to me, Chase and Olave are very similar in that they're both going to get volume, and it's going to be shorter receptions and shorter targets. And maybe that's the frame of mind we need to be looking at with Chase at this current form of the Bengals, as well as he can, break a number of tackles on a single catch and take 160 yards. And I don't think Olave can necessarily do that.
Yeah, there's fewer 25 plus yard targets with Jake Browning versus Joe Burrow, and then more targets at the line of scrimmage in that kind of sweet spot at like 8 yards down the field. That's where we're kind of missing a lot of the targets to Jamar Chase. Just quick, because you were peppering me with Jamar Chase questions. Rest of the season, pick a number. So we're talking about week 5 all the way through. Where does Jamar Chase finish? Like, throw the last couple weeks out. Just moving forward, is he a wide receiver blank?
He is wide receiver 24 the rest of the way. Final one for you. He's even more underperforming than Jamar Chase has been so far. Brian Thomas Jr., who's wide receiver 44 at this moment.
I'll take Jamar Chase.
Okay. All right. And by the way, if you make a move based on instant questions I asked Hayden, that is totally on you. Do not go back and hold these names and these preferences on Hayden at the end of the season.
No,
Again,
those
we are
were
just
fair.
answering these throw out questions ahead of week 5, and things change on a freaking weekly basis, as you all can tell.
For entertainment purposes only.
There it is. Okay, Green Bay Packers, speaking of. So we saw really the first game fully not facing the Cleveland Browns defense without Jaden Reed. And what we got was 3 Romeo Doubs touchdowns, and then Matthew Golden out there catching a 46-yarder. Now, to me, there are some details to talk about with both of those. First, with Romeo Doubs, he was consistently lining up as the X wide receiver in like these 3-by-1 sets. So they would get, let's say, Matthew Golden and Dontavian Wicks and Tucker Kraft on one side. Mm-hmm. They would put them in tight splits, stack them, even do some quick motions between them. And then, Jordan Love would see either off coverage or a one-on-one chance for Romeo Doubs on the opposite side. And he was constantly taking that one. Yep. And that's good to know because, his alert has often been and will be continuing Romeo Doubs. So he is still a mainstay in this offense. Now on the Matthew Golden front, he finally caught a deep pass. Hayden, I couldn't tell if Jordan Love was actually targeting Matthew Golden on that 46-yarder.
He was absolutely not.
Yeah, so Matthew Golden and Dontavian Wicks are running literally within 3 feet of each other, and Golden is the one that catches it. So that made his day, to be honest.
It did. Now, I completely agree. Let's go with Romeo Doubs first. I will be ranking him ahead. I think that he's underrated right now. Jaden Reed's going to be out for a very long time, and this offense is good. That was the goal line fade, and that was just pretty much just Jordan Love seeing the one-on-one and liking that versus running the ball up the middle, and then that slant route, which is like what you talked about on the backside. as well. So those were both like very real plays. And I think that they really like Romeo Doubs, who's a full-time player. 16.2 expected fantasy points, a lot from last week. Matthew Golden, they did give him a couple screen attempts early in that game as well. So he was running some downfield routes. Now he also was running backwards on one of the screen attempts, which you don't love to see. He also got absolutely lit up on that punt where he just like hit the spin move for no reason in the middle of the field. So yeah, we're working through this. Matthew Golden's route participation did drop, like I think it was like 14 percentage points, which you don't love to see. There's going to be a little bit of a rotation. But yeah, like that Matthew Golden, Dontavian Wicks, that easily could have been a touchdown. So I'm very curious to see like if they'll talk about that, because I think maybe Dontavian Wicks was kind of like freelancing. He put his hands out and working down the field, but they converged at the same spot. And the Dontavian Wicks' corner is actually the one who tackled Matthew Golden. So we got a couple more screen attempts in this one, got the downfield stuff. He's just not playing as much as I'd like. He's kind of turning into Jaden Reed, which has been frustrating.
Exactly. That's what I was going to bring up. He got some of the shifts, full speed motions, fly motions, all that stuff that Jaden Reed was getting behind the line of scrimmage. And if we just look at snap shares, I mean, Romeo Doubs is all the way up at 90%, which is really tough to find among a Packers wide receiver. Dontavian Wicks was at 77, and then Golden was at 59, and Malik Heath at 23, and my guy Savion Williams there at 12%. So this rotation is going to continue. If it hits the season, Matthew Golden feels like it's going to be like a post-buy rookie bump styling of a player. But then the other part here is they just, spread the rock. If we just look over the entire season, Tucker Kraft leads this team with 18% of the targets, then Romeo Doubs at 17%, then Wicks at 14%. And then like right after that is Matthew Golden. So all these guys are very, very close. And we're going to talk about some names later that are at like 36% target shares.
Yeah, definitely so. Quickly on that, Tucker Kraft is also, he had 3 screens in this last one too. So some of the manufactured stuff is actually going to the tight end. He got tackled at the 1 yard line. To me, he looks like a Diet Coke version of George Kittle right now. He's a sensational player, and they know that, and they're going to continue to give him the ball. And then last note, usage wise, Josh Jacobs through 4 weeks, running back 2 and expected half PPR points. So total monster out there playing through that cut and whatnot. But he's going to have a chance to score 15 touchdowns this year, and he's going to be a fantastic round 2-3 selection.
Running back 7 overall, Josh Jacobs is at this moment. Okay, their opponents who they tied, the Dallas Cowboys. Javonte Williams is the running back 6, 1 spot ahead of Josh Jacobs. But obviously the big conversation is George Pickens. After that wide receiver 63 finish in week 1, a warning that they played zone coverage, that he saw a bunch of Quinyon Mitchell, that Vic Fangio doesn't prevent long receptions. He's been the wide receiver 14, 16, and wide receiver 2 ever since then. Your expectations moving forward are what?
Extremely high. I mean, I had a very aggressive ranking last week, and I'm just getting more bullish. Remember, like, he also was tackled at the 1 yard line, and that was almost another touchdown. And they gave him another jump ball situation in the red zone as well. So he is beyond a focal point of the pass game. 16.4 and 16.6 expected fantasy points in the 2 games without CeeDee Lamb. Those are monster wide receiver 1, no questions asked numbers and usage. I think he looks pretty good. There was a couple slants, some dig routes as well. So there's going to be some like yards after the catch potential in this offense, which we really have never seen with George Pickens. And then like this was just an incredible game from Dak Prescott. Like one of the best you'll see the entire season. Like doing this against that defense in that environment without your center and your first round right guard and your left tackle's not playing well as well. Like that one play out of structure throwing it down the sideline to Tolbert and stuff. Like this was incredible football play from Dak Prescott, who I did not think had a good season last year, but this year looks like one of like the 5 best quarterbacks in the NFL, especially considering some of the injuries of the elite guys. So what a performance from all these guys.
The next 3 games are incredible as well. They face the New York Jets, then the Carolina Panthers, and then the Washington Commanders over the next 3 weeks. So Dak might be on what we said when CD was healthy in terms of being like number 1 in passing yards this season. And then Jake Ferguson continues to remain as one of the best assets at tight end. He is the tight end 2 on the season right now, over 12 fantasy points in 3 straight games. We'll get into some of these names as we go along, but none of the top 4 tight ends were drafted in the top, 7 or even 8 rounds. Hunter Henry, Jake Ferguson, Dalton Kincaid, Tucker Kraft. It's a very long season. We will see what happens, but every year It's just a constant conversation of, hey, even if you like one of these top guys, just know that some of the later mid and especially late round tight ends have done the best in terms of values in recent years. And that's not even mentioning, Juwan Johnson is tight end 7 right now.
Yeah. Jake Ferguson in like complete catch up mode is going to catch a bunch of passes. We saw that 2 weeks ago. And there's going to be some games where the Cowboys, give up 40 points like they did in this one. The defense still looks really terrible. And then in this game, Jake Ferguson, they motion him out at the goal line to get him one-on-one, and Dak Prescott immediately looks to him for that touchdown. It's like not a lot of tight ends in the league are going to get motioned out to set up a slant route touchdown. So that was pretty cool to see. So really aggressive play calling. I think that the ground game is looks really good. And I think that comes from the Arizona offense from the last couple of seasons that we really liked on the ground. So even Javonte Williams, man, season high 20 expected fantasy points without your center, without your right guard against the Packers. Woo.
Yeah. Now, I do want to bring up, they played an entire overtime on top of it. So it's like an
Right.
extra added quarter here. So that does amplify a couple things. But Miles Sanders is out. Miles Sanders is injured. So if this doesn't offer Jaden Blue an opportunity for the believers out there, then what is going to? And if that even matters based on how Javonte Williams looks at this point, it really doesn't matter.
He looks good. Straight up, he looks good.
Again, we talked about it a couple weeks ago. The floor for Javonte Williams, because just the overall offense is better this year, was where Rico Dowdle finished last season. That was pretty evident after week 1. And I think he finished as running back 17 or 19 last year. So you're getting a top 5 running back right now.
Wow.
Okay, before we go any further, as we go through the season, 3, 2, 1. As we go through the season, fewer and fewer of you who watch the show actually hit that subscribe button. It would be massive for us. It is totally free for you to hit that subscribe button, leave a thumbs up at the exact same time. We appreciate every single person who watches this, shares it, leaves a comment, does all that good stuff, and just checks out the channel. New York Giants are next. So in his NFL debut, Jackson Dart finished as quarterback 11 on the week with 19.8 fantasy points, which is, Hayden, signifying to me he is one of these quarterbacks who has a rushing floor and a passing ceiling, meaning that he only threw for 100 yards, but still nearly achieved 20 points. And so the quality passing numbers are going to be the avenue for him to finish as a top 5, top 6 quarterback on a weekly basis. But your thoughts on if that is possible this year without Malik Neighbors?
Yeah, it just makes it a lot more difficult. I think he's firmly a quarterback 2. And if he finishes as a top 12 quarterback rest of the season, that would be amazing. I do think that the rushing stuff is extremely real. A lot of that was by design in this one, including the red area touchdown where they used Cam Scadbo as a lead blocker. And then on a draw play for Jackson Dart's one of the truck stick guys on 3rd and 1 as well. It was what an energizing game from those two. These guys are out of their mind, Scadbo and Jackson Dart. So I watched this game live. What did you see when you went back to the All-22 and rewatched everything?
Yeah, I saw someone say that this is a Dartaboo offense, which very much the case. It actually reminded me, and I don't want anyone to take offense to this, especially Giants fans. It reminded me a lot of the 2022 Daniel Jones, Brian Daboll stuff, where they really maximized the quarterback movement and then kind of won on the fringes. And by winning on the fringes in this game, it was their defense setting up for them twice inside of the 3-yard line on the opposition side. That's not going to happen very much. And even the play calling, you can bring in the Ole Miss stuff too. I would say it was kind of like Trey Lance-ish on top of this a little bit, in that there really wasn't a drop back passing game at all. So did I expect a drop back passing game in week 1 against, a Jesse Minter defense? No. Do I want to see that more so when we move forward in week 2 and week 3 and week 4 as a starter? And is that going to be more difficult without Malik Neighbors? 100%. But I literally can't take anything away from this passing game or him as a passer from this game. But, we have seen Brian Daboll win games that he wasn't supposed to by kind of coaching around the strengths of some of his players. And he's going to get some good moments and drives from this rushing attack. I do wonder if they go up against a defensive line or a defensive front that now know how much of a focus the quarterback run game is going to be, like what the counterpunch is from there. Because again, I just got no answers from week one if that's going to happen.
Yeah, nothing in the normal drop back game at all in this one. He dropped his eyes too quickly on a lot of plays. He was playing very fast and he just seemed like he was super amped, which I think ended up working in his favor, but also did work against him in the normal drop back game. So yeah, I think it was a more of a fun game than like a great game from the offense, but that's a lot better than what we've seen from the Giants for the last couple seasons. Cam Scatterbo, real quick, season high 22.4 expected fantasy points in this one, got goal line usage, something to like watch with him. His leg drive and just churning through the tackles, and what he does, he'll do this like jump thing to like squeeze through. He's a thick dude, right? But he'll jump right through two offensive linemen, and he hits the ground and then churns those legs. I think he's very impressive. Like I'm not even like grading this on like, oh, he's just a rookie, he's fun, he's like a meme. Like I think he's just like straight up a good running back in the NFL already.
Yeah, I mean, again, we always appreciate the running styles of Dave Montgomery or the James Conner get off me stuff. And Cam Scatterbo brings that hammer mentality to the league. And yeah, it never made any sense to me why like Big Draft didn't like him. He's just such an enjoyable watch. And how he wins, it translates already to the league. And it's so fun to see. The last thing on Jackson Dart is, if there was one thing I want him to work on, and you can see improvement into his second start, it would be taking fewer sacks. Like to me, at least 3 of them were incredibly avoidable. And those were on like first and second down. I think one was on third down. So if he improves that, then like that's a nice step in the right direction. And then we kind of go from there.
Anything on Wan'Dale Robinson and Darius Slayton? Like we talked about this on the waiver wire show. Like we're going to rank Wan'Dale ahead of Darius Slayton. I think Slayton's going to have some moments in this when he drew that pass interference or holding call in the red area, but Wan'Dale's going to get the gimme looks. I think a lot more of the RPO-y Old Miss stuff's probably going to go to Wan'Dale, but if he's in my top 30 wide receivers next week, is that surprising to you?
I honestly have 0 comments about this passing game. I don't even know what it looks like. Like, there was the shovel to Theo Johnson. There was another pass to Theo Johnson. There were just other times where, especially on like corner routes or sideline routes, ones were open. There was a, 3-level concept that he just didn't throw, instead took a sack. There was another one to Theo Johnson that he dropped his eyes and kind of moved around a bit too often. So I just don't have an answer here. I know he's also going to test Darius Slayton at some point in one-on-one coverage. And with the rushing prowess that maybe this backfield duo does have, if that sucks them into more single high looks, then that should allow Darius Slayton to have these opportunities. You just wish that was Malik Neighbors. Baltimore Ravens. Derrick Henry is running back 19 right now. Lamar Jackson, more importantly, is out with a hamstring injury. They've, I think, already ruled him out here for week 5. Then they are playing a different team in week 6. And then they have a week 7 bye, Hayden. I don't think it's totally out of the question that unless he's, 85, 90% in week 6, that we don't see Lamar Jackson until week 8 again.
Man, they're really going to be up against it in the win-loss column. And the Ravens, I think they lost like 6 or 7 starters now on their defense, like include Marlon Humphrey, Nate Wiggins. Their best player on defense up front is out for the season. Kyle Van Noy hasn't played in a little bit. Roquan Smith is banged up. It's a disaster on the Ravens defense. And then on offense too, Ronnie Stanley played only a couple snaps in this last one before he left. And then on top of that, I love Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson is like kind of lost in the pocket. He's just like not throwing the football, and there's not like a bunch of separation. Sometimes he'll like throw it to Mark Andrews or DeAndre Hopkins, and they're just getting completely clamped. There's like not that much speed beyond Zay Flowers right now, but it is a disaster. The offensive line isn't playing well, but Lamar Jackson does not look like Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen and some of the other elite quarterbacks this year. And that's definitely worrisome.
Who knew the key to the entire offense working was Patrick Ricard, who has not played a single snap this season.
Yeah, seriously.
I mean, they can't do much of anything without him. Again, I wanted to bring up Derrick Henry because if the Ravens are worse this year, and who knows what Cooper Rush brings to this team after he was somewhat productive.
I know exactly what we're getting.
Then you're going to get more of these bad Derrick Henry games. Again, he's one of the most game script dependent players. When you are neutral or leading, he can just absolutely pound away in terms of these long gains and then just, stack them up over and over again. But again, when you're down by 14, 10, whatever, it's pretty clear that another back, whether it be, with the Tennessee Titans or now with the Baltimore Ravens, and now it's Justice Hill versus Dion Lewis, then someone else is going to get the opportunities in there. So this Ravens team isn't close to as good as they were last season, and then they're just getting even more injured on top of it. The next two teams are the Texans and that defensive line, and then the Rams and that defensive line, and then the bye week.
It's not good. Just this chart that's on the screen right here is just comparing Derrick Henry this year versus last year. He's still getting the explosive runs. The big difference is he's getting tackled at and behind the line of scrimmage far more than those 5, 6, 7, 8 yard carries. And usually like that, it would just be like 5 yard carry, 5 yard carry, 5 yard, 30 yard carry. This year, it's like -1 punt, -2 20 yard carry. And they're just not moving the ball nearly as well as before. So, and Lamar's just taking more sacks than he ever has on top of it. So I don't know where the hell am I going to be ranking Derrick Henry without Lamar Jackson against the Texans and the Rams and if Ronnie Stanley's not going to be out there, that's like a bad offensive line, bad quarterback against elite defensive fronts. The ranking is going to be shockingly low, I think.
But then after the bye week, you did get 2 games against the Bears and the Dolphins. So let's hit that streak really good.
But if they're 1-5,
I know.
Coming out of the bye week, the pressure is on. The playoffs start in week 8 for them, if that's the case.
But at the same, again, the AFC North, though, Hayden, it's not like we are in the AFC North of 4 years ago. It is what it is.
But then they're going to be potentially a wild card team, and they're going to have to go into Buffalo and into Kansas City to kind of survive here. They're not going to give up, is what I'm saying. All these guys are going to come back at some point, and there's going to be a section of the season that we see this Ravens offense get back to what they were, in week 1 or week 2 of this season. In week 1, they look like the best offense in the league in terms of running over the Buffalo Bills. They did, but since then they've lost 7 of their best players.
Yeah. I hear you. Okay, let's talk about the Kansas City Chiefs. The number one topic is Xavier Worthy, who returned in a big way off of that shoulder injury, and immediately they got him involved. He was doing, full formation motions into a 37-yard vertical shot. They were getting him backfield swings. They're getting him rub and pick routes at the second level on top of it. I believe Patrick Mahomes threw 4 20-plus yard passes in his direction. One of them hit, which is great. The other 3 did not. But this shows that Xavier Worthy, they need him, and he is fully back, and they plan to truly make him the focal point of the passing game. Yeah,
after removing the first game of the season where he only played 3 plays, this last week, his expected points were equivalent to wide receiver 15. And he did not do that as a full-time player. He played 68% of the plays. It was just 31% whenever he was out there, he was getting a target, and then he was also adding the rushing component. I thought he looked pretty dang impressive. The offense just felt way better. I think having Tyquan Thornton and Marquise Brown, not great players, but versus the Justin Watsons and the DeAndre Hopkins and the Sammy Watkins for the last couple of years, you're at least I might get beaten over the top by Patrick Mahomes. I think he's playing very good football still. So this offense, I think this team looks really good on offense, and I think that we're going to have some pretty dope Patrick Mahomes fantasy numbers moving forward. And then until we get Rashee Rice back, I do think that Xavier Worthy is going to be a fantastic play, maybe even inside my top 15 this next week if they can promise me a couple more snaps.
Right now, Patrick Mahomes is the quarterback 3 on the season. And the Worthy Rashee Rice combo should be very fun because we really didn't get that at all last year when the two are who they are. Rashee Rice opened last season on a tear, but they were trying to figure out what Xavier Worthy is, how he incorporates in the offense. He was trying to figure out the physicality and the speed of the NFL on top of it. So once we get that in week 7 moving forward, this is a really dynamic passing attack, and the rushing attack still sucks.
Yeah, they can't run the ball at all. It doesn't matter who they get in there. Pacheco left wide open the pass game, in the red zone, but and then Kareem Hunt at the goal line. It's a committee. You can't do anything back there, but the Chiefs are 8th in wide receiver usage this season, and that's even without Worthy and Rice out there. So once we get these guys back in here, the ceiling is very, very, very high.
Okay, last one of the top 10. Let's talk Cleveland Browns. According to Matt Zenitz of CBS Sports, Dylan Gabriel is expected to start here in week 5 and take over for Joe Flacco. I don't think we have that confirmed as of the time of recording, but we'll just roll with it in that direction. Hayden, what is fascinating about this team is that Quinshon Judkins continues to produce, and how they are utilizing him in ways that other teams wouldn't when down by 14, 17, 24 points is very notable to me, because in many other situations, when teams go by double digits or even 20 plus points, they will spread everything out, only throw the football, try to hurry it up, and have these, no huddle drives in garbage time. The Browns are still trotting 12 personnel out there with 2 tight ends. They're even moving their wide receiver into the formation to basically make him a third tight end on the end of the line. And they're just running Quinshon Judkins even when down, again, 14 and 17 points. And that allows someone on arguably the worst, if not one of the worst teams in the NFL, to still get 20 plus opportunities despite your team losing by so many points.
Yeah, I think that's part of it's like the evaluation mode. Like they're trying to look and learn from, could they trust Harold Fannin, the run blocker? Could they trust Quinshon Judkins as a bell cow? And like late in that game, Aiden Hutchinson had him like fully wrapped up, and he does like a little spin move, gets out of it, and turns for a first down. So like every single game, there's been one of the best runs of the week has belonged to Quinshon Judkins, and this is not a good offensive line that he's running behind. So extremely impressive stuff from him, from their first round defensive tackle, Carson Schlesinger, their second rounder that was drafted right next to Quinshon. Have all been excellent. And then Harold Fannin is making one-on-one plays in the pass game. The ground game stuff is a little bit work in progress there, but he beat Brian Branch over the middle as well. And he's always a pain in the ass to tackle. So like this rookie class looks really good. And that's before we get to evaluate Dillon Gabriel. And then Isaiah Bond, he was also out there after Cedric Tillman left. He was like the next guy up, and like they got him for free, obviously. But he's like going to be another rookie that's going to be eating up a ton of snaps.
Yeah. So Cedric Tillman dealing with an injury, placed on injured reserve. I believe Isaiah Bond pops in there for like 55 or 60% of snaps. Their other wide receiver, correct me if I'm wrong, was like Jamari Thrash. Did I make that up?
Yeah. No, that's him.
So it seemed like even 2 weeks ago, they wanted to get Bond a bit more involved. Like he was eating to Tillman snaps just a little bit. Again, if they are in full evaluation mode, then I would assume that they want to play a rookie wide receiver as much as possible. He had 6 targets, 3 catches, 58 yards. He won on a vertical route versus single high in this game as well. So we will see. I mean, this passing game has been quite brutal to watch with Joe Flacco at the helm. Dillon Gabriel is a different styling of passer that, to me, Hayden, is going to get the ball out quick, point and shoot passer that might be more, targets closer to the line of scrimmage or in that, let's say, 2 to 10 yard range. I'm not sure if the success rate of it will change, but if, again, like the mentality does shift of, hey, it doesn't matter if we're down by so many points, we're going to hand the football off to Quinshon Judkins because that's where we're at our best right now, then that truly, and I think Judkins has been awesome, and he, presses the line of scrimmage and the way he cuts outside and then attacks a cornerback on his inside shoulder right off tackle has been really fun stuff. But again, if they want to evaluate Dillon Gabriel in this, it wouldn't surprise me if they, shift some of those garbage time plays into more passes versus runs.
Yeah, I can see it all. I think Judkins is like so firmly a fantasy starter, RB2 at the worst. And then I think Harold Fannon's like keeping the dream alive. He's the tight end 7 and usage. David Njoku's numbers keep going down. So I wonder if David Njoku is going to be a trade target. But I think over the next couple of weeks, it's going to be like an entire rookie offense, which we should expect some brutal performances out of that. But I kind of get it, just like soft tanking, believing into your draft class before you find the quarterback of the future, probably at next year's draft.
Right. They face the Minnesota Vikings this week, and that is across the pond in London for your first start for Dillon Gabriel. But then after that, it's the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Miami Dolphins. Like me saying that stuff about garbage time, they could also just be a better offense. Like that is possible here with Dillon Gabriel, even if I don't think he's an NFL starting caliber player. But in the end, like there's going to be conversation this week on whatever chat show you look at where, why is Shedeur Sanders not playing? I can't believe it's Dillon Gabriel. I would not waste your breath with that stuff because neither of these guys are going to be the starting quarterback in 2026. It's just Dillon Gabriel is going to be the long-term backup for this team, and they're playing him to get him reps now. And then a new starter comes in next year. And so why have these massive conversations of Shedeur versus Dillon Gabriel, in my opinion?
I'm rooting for Dillon Gabriel big time because I played underdog season long pick 'em, I had the lower on Joe Flacco at 5.5. So we got that one in there, and then lower on Shedeur Sanders at 2.5. So I need Dylan Gabriel to play in there. And if I'm being truthful, that was more of a Kenny Pickett discussion and thought process from me. And I think that Dylan Gabriel is going to come bail me out.
Yeah. You also had a Jake Hayner.
Why was he in the lobby? Why? I mean, is he even in the league?
He was getting starting snaps and a couple of days in training camp. Just nuts of stuff.
Yeah.
I don't even think he's on the roster anymore.
Well, he's at best quarterback 3. Yeah, that's funny.
Alphabetical order. Before we get there, if you ever want to support us, the best way of doing that is supporting Underdog. Use promo code The Show. Click the link in the description down below. They add new things to the platform like every single week.
It's wild.
Today, it's ladders. So your flag plants can be even bigger winners for yourself. Like if, you thought that Drake London wouldn't just get, 35 receiving yards, he'd get 55 or 65 or 75. Boom, ladders is for you. Or Romeo Dobbs, not just 1 touchdown, but 2, but 3 on top of it. Again, your flag plants each week can win even bigger. So go and check out ladders over on Underdog. Let's talk about the Arizona Cardinals. The full focus was on Trey Benson, who took over as the lead running back for the injured James Conner. I think based on everyone's reactions to an Island game, Hayden, they expected Trey Benson to play 80% of snaps. And to me, that is outlandish. And some of that was game script related. But if Trey Benson, who when attached to James Conner, had the passing down 2-minute, 4-minute drill stuff, it's only natural and obvious to me that he was going to lose it when his backups are Emari Demercado and Michael Carter, because that's all that they can do. They're not going to take first down away from Trey Benson. They're going to take third down away from Trey Benson.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. And we see that especially in the last quarter of the game when they were definitely trailing. It was a lot more Emari Demercado. So that hurt the Trey Benson stuff. I think he's not getting the James Conner plus Trey Benson role. He's just getting the James Conner role and maybe a little bit more than that. And he's not going to face the Seattle Seahawks with his left tackle barely able to suit up in this one. So better days are ahead for Trey Benson. I don't think that he's going to be a top 12 running back. I think that the Cardinals are missing their run game coordinator, who's now showing off with Javonte Williams in Dallas. And the offensive line is just not very good in general. So Trey Benson, I think that rest of the season he's the RB 16 to 20, which I think is totally fine. If you just went crazy on the waiver wire, better days are ahead. I think predictably a down week against the Seattle Seahawks front 7. And yeah, maybe I'm not sure if people had too high of expectations just in general, but 8.7 expected half PPR points in week 1 or his first game as a starter will probably be somewhere close to a season low for him. So better days are ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he played, like I said, 55% of snaps, but he's going to flirt with some top 12 weeks, like against the Tennessee Titans this week. Yeah. He could easily be ranked. Wouldn't surprise me at all in running back rankings tomorrow if he's top 12 for you. That team has been run through. They don't score a lot of points when they're not trailing in the fourth quarter or the final drive. And that's when Emari Demercado gets his receiving touchdown. Then that could just be Trey Benson closing it out with 6 or 7 straight runs to end it. So again, I do not love the Trey Benson profile. I think it's very different than James Conner in terms of he is better off tackle on the edge versus the James Conner hammer stuff between the tackles and picking up the tough yards. But it doesn't necessarily matter because there's going to be games where he gets 20 touches.
Other note I have from the Cardinals, they're dealing with so many injuries in the secondary. I think that defense is going to show some fight, but they're just not going to be good enough. And I think that Trey McBride and Marvin Harrison are underrated winners over the last couple of weeks. Trey McBride, the last 2 games without James Conner and the defense regressing at 14.8 and 13.9 expected fantasy points. That is by far the most in the NFL if that little mini trend continues. And then Marvin Harrison, while trailing, had a season high 13.7 expected half PPR points. So compared to last year, if this team can't run the ball as effectively, which is kind of what I'm going with, I think out of necessity, they're going to have to pass the ball a little bit more this year than they did the previous year. So I think the bottom was in for Marvin Harrison when I looked at the pick'em lobby and he had the same exact receiving yardage as Cooper Kupp. And I think that Trey McBride's about to completely take off as well. So I think both of those guys look better now than they did even in week 1.
Yeah. Trey McBride, the tight end 6 at this moment. And he's not scoring like you need a round 2/3 player to do it at the tight end position. He's kind of among the grouping at 7 overall fantasy points. And, the top tight end is getting about 9.5, which is very different than when we were taking, round 1, round 2 tight ends when they were scoring 14, 13, 12 on a weekly basis.
I mean, Gronk and those guys are just like
Right.
15, 17, 18,
Right.
It's nutso stuff. But I do think that Trey McBride, I think the rest of the season will look better than September. I feel very confident in that.
And his target share is about 6% higher than Marvin Harrison Jr.'s. Like, he is easily the top target. The thing with Marv, to me, he's not separating any differently than he did last year. He's very much the same player. So if you are a technician who, is going to win in close range of a cornerback, you have to catch everything. He didn't early on, and then he did towards the end in terms of that red zone touchdown, which is great. Like, felt awesome for him when he did it. But oftentimes you see breakouts and second-year wide receivers take the next step and take the next leap. For him, he just has to, again, be perfect in the elements he can control. I just don't see a different player who did take the next leap in terms of like an individual explosive guy or separator at this point.
I see the same thing on film. I just think that the environment for fantasy points is better this year just because the ground game defense looks a little bit worse. And he's at least moving around the formation a little bit more, giving him an extra screen or two per month, which is not nothing.
Right.
I think he's the wide receiver 24. I was hoping you were not going to ask
That's better than he was last year.
For sure. Like Jamar Chase versus Marvin Harrison. I thought that you were going to hit me with one of those. I think that would have been an interesting discussion. So I don't think he's going to live up to that early round 3 capital. But I don't think he's going to be like the reason why you didn't make the fantasy playoffs.
Yep.
Or anything like that.
Atlanta Falcons. So there was plenty of freak out about Drake London prior to last week. We spent a good portion of the show on it. And if you drafted Drake London, you should thank us because I think Zach Robinson listed. Prior to the game, he had 4 catches for 40 yards and 5 targets in the slot. In week 4 alone, he had 5 receptions for 81 yards and 1 touchdown. Now, when you look on the stat sheet, Hayden, that says he played 44% of his snaps in the slot versus 23.5 out wide. That might be target share. Anyways, when you actually watch the games, it's not exactly he was stationary in the slot. More importantly, he was being put in shifts and full speed motion at the snap. So he's getting these free releases. He was getting, space manufactured for him. And he was just able to win consistently there. So that's good. Like, you are able to put your best pass catcher in an advantageous position and it immediately paid off. I just don't know why they weren't doing that in the first 3 weeks of the year.
I don't get why they weren't doing it, but week 4 looked like all of the last season. And
correct.
Drake London is he's a total
He's
baller,
great,
man. He's so good at the catch point. He's faster than given credit for. And he should not be able to cut the way that he does. Like some of those, like the cheat motion stuff where then he runs the dig route after running full speed, being able to do that, all of the motion stuff in the slot. And also that big double move up the sideline. Like he's one of the best receivers in the game. And they were using him as if he was like the focal point of the offense, as they should. And it's probably a little bit helpful that Darnell Mooney is now dealing with a hamstring injury, did not finish that last game. So Drake London looked awesome. And it seemed like the wide receiver coach is like taking a huge L here. I don't know. The wide receiver coach, by the way, does not call the plays. So I don't know that they can't blame him too much here. But
well, the other part was Zach Robinson said he wished he had called games on the sideline versus in the booth before. And this is the first game he called from the sideline.
But like you couldn't call the cheat motion and stuff from the booth.
Trust me, it made no sense. When I went back and looked at the stuff I had to stats for this film last week, I was like, what the hell is happening here?
I know. Yeah. And they weren't throwing the ball over the middle. You got a couple more plays over the middle on this one too. So that was good to see. Yeah. It was just completely night and day.
Yeah. The other thing we need to shout out is, the tight end 9 overall right now. That is Kyle Pitts.
Yep.
And this might continue. Kyle Pitts so far this season, Hayden, 78%, 80%, 82%, 74% snaps. And then Darnell Mooney is going to be out for a long time with, I believe, a hamstring injury.
Yeah.
So this is a team that dominated in 3 wide receiver sets last year, and Kyle Pitts was not a factor because of it. They are running about 30% fewer 3 wide receiver sets this year, and Kyle Pitts is being a huge beneficiary of that. And it's not just, 2 wide receiver set stuff. He's also out there in 3 wide receiver set stuff too.
Yeah, 9.2 and 8.2 expected points without Mooney. Though the 2 games with him, it's lower than that. So there's some splits occurring there. He just looks good on tape too. It's like nothing crazy like the rookie season where he was just like a go ball winner down the sideline. But more bursts within 20 yards, and I think eventually there'll be a couple splash plays. So I think that he's passing the eye test. Him and Kincaid buying the dip on the 3rd year tight end. How about that? Or it's 4th year for Pitts. But same.
Yeah, I was about to say. I feel like I've been talking about Kyle Pitts for 17 years on this show.
But when you miss a full season and he's out of my mind, he's still, to me, a 3rd year breakout. How about that?
All right. And then finally, Bijan Robinson is just unreal. Like when you're just watching the games, the way he moves is simply outstanding. There have been obviously many amazing running back picks in the first 2 rounds so far. Jonathan Taylor's a running back 2, Bijan's a running back 3, CMC's a running back 4. The Bijan Robinson stuff, while per game at this moment, it's only at 19.9. I'm going to compare it to the 2017 Todd Gurley season when he went nuclear. Now I think that year Todd Gurley had 24 fantasy points per contest. I mean, just nutso stuff. But the usage is quite similar in terms of these receptions out in the flats and having that be a massive part of the game plan. I think a main difference is I'm not sure who Todd Gurley's bowling ball closer was at the 4th quarters, because that is Tyler Algier for this team.
And look, you can complain about the Algier stuff all you want, guys. With it, if you're a Bijan manager, he just runs right through everybody's face. So I totally get it if you're the Falcons.
Okay, Buffalo Bills. This team is incredibly obvious with what they're good at and what they do. James Cook right now is the running back 1 overall. He continues to score touchdowns inside of the 10-yard line. He was one of the best picks in all of fantasy football this year. They only go 3 and out at the 3rd lowest rate across the NFL at this moment. And then they are frustrating to play anyone else other than Josh Allen, because when you look at it and how their how their targets are dispersed, I should say, Keon Coleman is at 18.5%. Khalil Shakir is at 16.8%. And Don Kincaid's at 15.1%. And that doesn't even include Josh Palmer or Dawson Knox or James Cook or even Curtis Samuel in this game.
Yeah, so wide receivers for usage, Keon Coleman, wide receiver 47, Shakir 58, Palmer 71. So like these guys they'll have a game or two and it's going to be completely unpredictable. Khalil Shakir looked awesome on that broken tackle. And like you said, that the targets aren't good enough to play him continuously. So it's like a better and best ball team, aside from, I think Dalton Kincaid is graduated enough. He's still not running a lot of routes, but touchdown or bust candidate. Absolutely. And then, James Cook has just been a monster, above 15 expected half PPR points in all 4 outings. So it's just beyond like last year's usage. Like this is like a absolute league winner type.
He looks just like Dalvin, man. It's pretty amazing how close they look alike. The Kincaid stuff. I got a question of, hey, should I start Hunter Henry or Dalton Kincaid? My answer would be, hey, which team has and is favored for more points that week? Obviously, that's most likely to be the Bills. But whichever team is more likely to score a touchdown or more touchdowns, play that tight end, because that's what those 2 guys are kind of flip flopping in that department. And then finally here, with Lamar Jackson injured for the next few weeks, Josh Allen is the clear quarterback 1. I mean, right now he is 24.9 points. And then Patrick Mahomes is the next closest, who is healthy at 22.4 points per game.
Yeah. I don't know how you stop this offense right now.
Carolina Panthers are next. This defense next faces the Miami Dolphins. I don't know if you got to watch any of the Patriots offensive stuff, but what they were doing is tons of misdirection. And they were forcing this guy, DJ Johnson, who's a former 3rd round pick, to like fly up the field and running right by him. DJ Johnson is now gone. He is now cut since that game, even if he was a starter. But this team is going to get torched on there. And then offensively, Hayden, like they still have yet to play a normal game, as we talked about on Sunday night.
Yeah, it's wild. With the Chuba stuff, his efficiency is down the last 2 games versus the 2 previous games, and that's like when the center and right guard are out. Rico Dowdle was actually mixing in like early in the game, which we had not seen in a little bit. So I wonder if they're just like trying to jumpstart the offense, but you can see Rico Dowdle got a little bit of a run early on.
Got a whole drive, I believe.
Yeah. And then at the very end, in complete just BS time. They even got ETN down there. So better days are coming for Chuba Hubbard, but the team is just looking really bad. So like the thought process of, hey, if this team is the 20th best team instead of 30th, it's hard to envision at this point.
I'm actually skeptical if good things are coming ahead for Chuba Hubbard. My show on Thursday with Faraz, I brought him up the last, I think, 2 weeks as a sell candidate because his production so far has been in trailing passing situations. Like they can't run the football at this point. And that's just what he is going to be best at copying and pasting it on a weekly basis. And right now, if you just look across of fantasy football, I believe he's the running back 19. I'm not sure if he's going to in the running back 16. I'm not sure he's going to finish as the running back 16 ahead of Kyron, Demont, Derrick Henry, Cam Scatterbu. So like, to me, this is a sell period for him.
Yeah. I think he's like the RB 23, somewhere in that range. It's, and I think there's a chance that if things broke his way, he could have been a top 15 running back, but obviously things have broken the opposite of that. And then you can see in this one, this is pretty surprising, neutral pass rate, which they're never in neutral situation. This is small sample size stuff, but they're third highest. And that's, I think, probably a backup center. And Robert Hunt is just a mover in the run game, and not having him, I do think, is like the biggest of the core issues there too. So Tataroa looks good every single time I watch him. He obviously had a couple drops and near catches, which hopefully he'll get cleaned up. But every single week he has like a couple like yards after the catch plays, which is like the underrated part of him. So big days are coming from Tataroa. He's one of the only rookie players who I can like see end up being like a really good pick eventually. But major positive regression, buy low candidate for Tataroa. I think big days are going to come. Yeah,
and you would like to think they come against the Miami Dolphins this week, but we will see. I have zero faith in the operation happening in Carolina right now. Chicago Bears. There's a lot of good here, specifically in the second half. They were a second half team, and it was really fun to watch and go back and go through this game. I mean, the throw that Caleb Williams made over the middle to Rome Odunze, where he threw it well before the break and it was on an absolute line, is absolute beautiful stuff. Again, there was a lot going wrong in the first half, but they're at least one of these teams that they can be a different team in the second half. And it helped that they got, 3 interceptions by their defense too.
It's good that the normal drop back game continues to get better and better. And the actual like root problem early in the game was they were trying to do a lot with the ground game and none of it was working. So they're doing some fancy stuff that was just like, they could not block it up. DeAndre Swift is just completely unreliable. Ball goes off of his forehead. And then Caleb, when he gets out of the pocket, like sometimes it's like the highlight play, and then sometimes the ball kind of gets scattershot with him. But I thought the play inside the pocket,
he tries that like torque throw all the time now when on the move.
Much. Yeah.
Instead of just like picking up a couple yards, he's like, I'm going to fit this in the tightest window, throw it as hard as I can. And it's like, just pick up 4 yards on the scramble instead.
But it does look pretty sick. So I'm for it watching him. My big takeaway from this one is I am calling the shot, feel super confident about this. Colston Loveland is going to matter big time as soon as he's back ready to go. He got a couple targets before that injury. And this week, Cole Kmet as a blocker, catching the ball over the middle, it was a disaster. It was a disaster for Cole Kmet. They are desperate for better tight end play. He can't block or catch. So big days are coming from Colston Loveland. So like if I'm sure that people have dropped him because we've had no production. Now it's bye weeks and injuries and stuff. And I get that in a shallow league, but if you are wanting to ride this thing out, I do think that Colston Loveland is going to be one of the guys that is very much going to matter as soon as he's back and ready to go with that hip injury.
And heck, I'll say that Kamonangai, after getting a ton of criticism for his pass protection, he only had 1 rep in this game, but he picked up an awesome blitz and allowed Caleb Williams to hit, a middle of the field throw on top of it. Look, DeAndre Swift had that short yardage rushing score, which again happens if you're playing 80% of the snaps. I just, have seen Ben Johnson offenses over the last few years. He's not going to appreciate a total lack of success rushing attack the entire rest of the way. And I'm not telling you Kamonangai definitely is the answer. I am saying he is a possible answer to that. And it would make sense that a 7th round rookie needs some time in order to earn some trust moving forward. So that is, I think, the next possible Woody Marks, could be Kamonangai in terms of pick him up a couple weeks early instead of having to spend 100% of your budget as soon as that happens.
Yep. Last note for me, Roma Dunze, 30%. Once you remove the screens, which he doesn't get that many screens, they have other guys to do that. But once you were in the normal drop back game, 30% target rate for him. So that's very, very, very promising.
Let's talk about the Detroit Lions. My only comment, because, Amon-Ra St. Brown is incredibly efficient still, and especially in the red zone, and man coverage was simply amazing. And Jahmyr Gibbs is Jahmyr Gibbs. Jameson Williams, this is the first game all year that he cleared 5 targets. He had 8 targets, but only 2 receptions for 40 yards. Unfortunately, a lot of it was his fault. He dropped a 44-yarder when he was kind of switching shoulders. He first looked over his right shoulder. The pass was to his left. Yep. Boom, breadbasket, bucket catch, drop. And then he had dropped another 12-yarder again in a very similar fashion. So it sucks. We keep asking for, more volume, at least I do, in the direction of Jameson Williams. He got it in this game, and it didn't work out.
Yeah. If you look at the change in average depth of target year over year, if you see a name way up top on this chart, that's Jameson Williams, who's currently at 21.4 ADOT down the field. So he's like the guy that I struggle with rankings the most, because 1 week he'll finish as the wide receiver 6 in a week, like maybe even next week, but I can't rank him very high because the consistency is just like so bad. So like on the season, if you're averaging it out, Jameson Williams is the wide receiver 50 in usage. He's obviously going to be performing better than my model because he's a good player and a good offense, but he's one of these guys that there's no gimmies right now for JMO.
I had this theory heading into this season that Ben Johnson and a different coordinator, they might change how they utilized Jameson Williams because of what Jameson Williams' profile was prior to 2024 as that vertical burner. Mm-hmm. But then the other part was last season, Sam Laporta was dealing with 17 different injuries, and they kind of gave his targets to Jameson Williams in terms of these crossers, delayed routes, these types of things that got him at full speed. And then he was able to run after the catch. So yeah, 2024, a lot of it was transformed for Jameson Williams. He wasn't just a vertical go ball guy, and he was more, hey, let's manufacture the space and have Jameson run into it, and then he can just run away with the ball. And we're not getting that stuff this year. And that's definitely going to hurt the consistency, obviously.
And the Lions are 31st in neutral run rate or neutral pass rate. They're just running the ball a ton. And then they're also leading by a lot. So you don't get as many fourth quarter receptions. So even with like Sam Laporta, that's 3 straight games where he's under 6.5 expected fantasy points. The week 1 chase mode where the ADOT for Jared Goff was like 2 yards down the field. He cleaned up there, but ever since then, like he's not a part of the offense. It's Amon-Ra St. Brown, the 2 running backs, and then a couple shot plays to these guys. So if they're going to be kicking everyone's ass and they're scoring 27 points instead of the 35, 40s, then those 2 guys I think are going to like lose at the margins.
Now we say all these things and they get the Cincinnati Bengals this week. So
start everybody.
Maybe it's a start everyone situation. And, when we do these shows in the summer about projected points and all this type of stuff, we get questions of, well, why are you trusting Vegas? They are wrong all the time, blah, blah, blah. This game against the Browns, when they are, on the same tier, let's say with the Green Bay Packers, to me shows why looking at projected team totals is beneficial.
Yes.
This is the last time I'm going to say it. In week 1, this Lions team against the Packers on the road was projected for 22 points. Then an equal, maybe defense, if not better, in the Cleveland Browns. At home, the Lions were projected for 27.5 in this game. Mm-hmm. That's a huge difference, And we saw what happened in week 1. There were some questions about the OC. It turned out to be the Packers tax. And then now here we are. And we can clearly say that this is going to be a very good offense once again. And I haven't looked at the totals this week, but are they going to be projected for 29.5 against the Bengals?
I wouldn't be taking the lower if they were projected that high. That feels appropriate to me.
Yeah, and they don't take the foot off the gas. And
I'm going 28.5
either. You're going 28.5. It is 29.5. Look at me.
There you go.
Look at me. Wow. All right. Next up, can't wait to talk about this. Houston Texans, only one man here in Woody Marks. 17 carries, 69 yards, 1 score. 4 catches, 50 yards, and 1 score. And he did it all on just 56% of snaps. Independently, me, you, Jacob have all talked about Woody Marks. I loved what I saw in preseason. Didn't really watch him as a prospect ahead of the NFL draft, but when he got out there in preseason action, he looked more like a well-rounded running back than just a passing down air back. And then, man, some of the cuts, like diagonally and upfield he was making here, it wasn't just lateral moves. Again, it was diagonal. It was creating that space. It was at full speed. I'm not saying that this offense is going to have true success running the football. Heck, they just traded away Cam Robinson after like signing him for some money. And it's not like the other offensive linemen have played great, but this is only to me going in one direction. There might be some bumps here and there, but Woody Marks is a top 24 running back the rest of the way in fantasy football. Easy to me.
14.6 expected points this last week, easily a season high. They gave Nick Chubb the first snaps coming out of each half, but after that, it was a bunch of Woody Marks, and this game was like not completely over at that point, so they weren't mixing in somebody else. So he's looked really good. And then if you're just looking at Nick Chubb versus Woody Marks, Nick Chubb keeps getting tackled 2-3 yards down the field, where Woody Marks is actually creating some explosives. And you just look at the eye test too. It's very obvious where this one's going to. So trade Nick Chubb if you can at all, and then make sure you get Woody Marks on your football team. He's going to be one of the best pickups of the year. He's also going to be one of the best rookie picks in best ball of the season as well. And then the Joe Mixon stuff, they're saying that he's probably not going to come back anytime soon, if at all. So it's going to be Woody Marks leading the charge.
Okay, question, and you are not responsible for your answer here. Rest of season, from here on out, Trey Benson or Woody Marks, who does better?
I'll go Trey Benson, but I think it's fairly close. I thought you were gonna hit me with the Chuba Hubbard or Woody Marks. I'll probably still go Chuba, but it's close. Like I would have Woody Marks top 30 rest of the season. Like Woody Marks or TreVeyon Henderson. Your turn. Go.
Oh, Woody Marks or TreVeyon Henderson. I would probably side with probably Woody Marks there.
Yep.
But I think both can finish at the end of the year as top 24 guys. We'll get to the Patriots here in a moment. I just also want to talk about the wide receiver stuff. So when Christian Kirk returned in week 3, he was seeing 67% of the snaps. That also allowed Xavier Hutchinson to play 62%. That basically stayed the same, even if Jaden Higgins popped in there for a slot vertical route touchdown. He had the same snaps as he did in week 3 at the same time. So we haven't seen, again, despite the production being there, an overtaking of Higgins and Noel instead of Hutchinson and Kirk at this point.
Yeah, full rotation back there. So Christian Kirk through 2 games, wide receiver 53 in usage. He's a bench guy only. All those guys are. The pass game they had a couple explosive plays. Like Nico Collins went right by L'Jarius Sneed, which was good to see. And then obviously Higgins won that one-on-one in the slot for a touchdown. But there wasn't this was not like a brand new offense and wow, look at all this stuff. No. They changed up the ground game a little bit, and Woody Marks had some comments after that. But the pass game offense still, to me, looks pretty messy. And I think that was more of a Tennessee Titans secondary stat. There was a couple just pass protection errors where I can't even explain the direction any of the offensive linemen were going to.
And we're saying all this stuff after the Titans game, which is the worst team in the NFL at this point.
Yeah.
And they're not going to be facing the worst team. They get them again, but not immediately. Now, they do get the Baltimore Ravens this week, and their defense has been decimated. It's still probably better than this Titan one. I think it is. Now, after that, it gets tough. It's the Seahawks, the 49ers, the Broncos, and the Jaguars in a 4-game stretch after that. So, again, I don't just want to take, we got this Woody Marks week. We're definitely going to get that every single time moving forward. And to be honest, the same stuff with Nico Collins. He is not, you and I both thought that in a good situation, Nico Collins could be top 3, top 4 producer at the wide receiver position this year. It's not even close to that at this point. And I can't tell you what they need to change other than the entire thing in order for him to be able to be totally spotlighted and highlighted with all of his talent.
Right. There's 2 charts that I want to hit on for the Texans. Deep targets, just anything beyond 15 air yards. Right now, the Texans are bottom 3 next to bottom 4 next to the Steelers, Eagles, and Jets. Not a very good spot to be on. And then I posted the other one on Twitter, which is deep targets, which I kind of I think 10 air yards, but over the middle. In a couple seasons ago, when Tank Dell and Nico Collins were rocking, they were an outlier.
Bobby Slowick.
They were, don't you dare.
I'm serious.
I'll just say, good Larry Tunsil. How about that?
Okay.
When they had Tank Dell, all those guys rolling, the Texans were like by themselves up in the top right quadrant. Now they're with the worst teams in the NFL in the bottom left. If you cannot throw the ball consistently over the middle and into the intermediate and deep part of the game, you have no chance at being a legit offense in the NFL. It's by far the most effective play. Looking at EPA, if you're just watching the game, big dig routes, post routes, seam routes, all the type of stuff, sitting in zone coverage. If you can't do that in the NFL, you just are not an NFL playoff caliber offense. And that's where the Texans are. So I want more dig routes to Nico Collins, post routes. I need more of that type of stuff before I can like start treating the Texans like as some like super serious team for the playoffs.
Yeah. Listen, I'm not saying that Bobby Slowick did not deserve to be fired. I am saying go back and watch that first season when he was calling plays with, as you said, Nico Collins, Tank Dell, and heck, even Noah Brown. And what you saw was 7-man protections with two tight ends or an extra fullback.
Yeah.
They had a great pass protection plan, and it was just crossing routes, scissor routes, stuff like that. And CJ could just hit his back foot and rip that stuff. And that is just all gone. And those were wide open constantly, every time. Condensed splits, we do here, and then we attack on the edge. That's all gone. So I was excited for Nick Caley. I cannot tell you what a Nick Caley offense is right now. Just can't do it.
Yeah. They're trying to figure it out. I missed the blocking it up, and it's just dig route, the Tank Dell comeback routes and stuff. It was just like automatic. Man.
Speaking of automatic, let's go to the Indianapolis Colts. If this is like a bad or average performance for the Colts, sign me the F up. And it really might be because, Daniel Jones was getting pressured. He had the 6th highest pressure rate here in week 4, and he still completed versus pressure 12 of 14 passes for 181 yards and a score. That's a new quarterback. That's a guy that has answers. That's a guy who's trusting all of his elements out there. He got banged up, and it still looked good. Now, the issue with that, Hayden, is this is an issue, but it's Jonathan Taylor, it's Tyler Warren, it's Michael Pittman, and a guy that we think is really talented, and Josh Downs is the wide receiver 74 on the season. So this is peak Colts, and Josh Downs is still wide receiver 74.
Yeah, I hate to say that he's droppable, but in like a shallower league, he definitely is droppable. So the Michael Pittman stuff's been electric. There's some splits without Alec Pierce. I don't like truly believe in those, but Michael Pittman's a focal point. He looks healthy. He looks good. And then Tyler Warren, he had 14.1 expected half PPR points, getting that goal line carry. And that's with the first game where they were actually in trail mode. So we're going to see some, I think, better games out of Tyler Warren than the first 3 weeks. Just because they're not going to be beating everybody by a bunch. But yeah, no, this is a very just well thought out offense. And Daniel Jones is just like sliding in the pocket and hitting some big boy throws. So yeah, man, like super impressed.
Super impressed. This team is just really fun to watch on a weekly basis. It's one of the first teams that I boot up every single Monday morning because I want to see what Shane Steichen and company are doing. Anything else you want to add on this team other than, Jonathan Taylor being the running back 2 overall at this point with nearly 21 points per game?
Yeah, I guess it would just be like kind of circling back to Michael Pittman. I feel like people are not appreciating what he's going to do this season. If you just like look at the Gardner Minshew year and then where he's at right now, and then even the beginning before he threw out his back last year, like the numbers are very, very solid. So another USC Trojan that probably belongs in the top 30 in fantasy rankings. And
the other thing I'll say is if you are out there and you drafted 2 tight ends and like Tyler Warren was your first, or you picked up Jawan Johnson, or you picked up Hunter Henry, or you have Don Kincaid, look to sell those other guys high right now. I'm not saying they're going to go down, but you just shouldn't have 2 tight ends of this caliber that are top 4. To me, that's like a perfect time to go and get someone else at a running back or wide receiver spot. Jacksonville Jaguars. Hayden, is it time for Liam Cohen to pick a side for Travis Hunter?
Probably, but like if you're going to pick a side and it's just like now he's just your full-time slot wide receiver because he doesn't know the rest of the playbook on offense, like is that really helping out either? Like to me, what we got from this game for Travis was just that wow play and the reminder of like what he's capable of, like when he's not just a Cole Beasley's like choice route merchant, like more post routes is like, even if he's like only knows the playbook from the slot, give me more of those. Like I want all the fun stuff down the field with Travis Hunter. So He's played 100% of the 3 wide receiver sets, and then he played 0% of the others. And that's exactly what Liam Cohen said is the situation with him. So it doesn't matter, like, for fantasy purposes right now until something changes. Like, there's only a couple wide receivers that don't play in 2 wide receiver sets that are fantasy relevant. So we are stuck with Travis Hunter, but it was a good reminder that he can go up and make some sick plays at the catch point. So we'll see.
What you're referring to is a 28-yarder 3rd and 15 from their own goal line. And he just climbs the ladder and he goes up and gets it. Now he had another reception that he fumbled a bit later on. I guess my point is this. He played 8 defensive snaps on the opening drive. Then he played 1 more on the next series, which was a 3rd and 2 reception that he allowed in man-to-man coverage versus Ricky Pearsall. And then didn't play a single defensive snap in the final 3 quarters.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, he only played 38 of 68 offensive snaps. And I get if those are only in the slot and he's playing nearly 100% of those. The issue with that is the Jaguars are 11th in 3 wide receiver sets at 68% of the time. So then that leads me to a question of, is a guy who's playing 38 of 68 offensive snaps and then 9 defensive snaps, is that worth 2 first-round picks and a second-round pick? The answer is no.
If it's not, like, even if it was Amon-Ra St. Brown as the slot wide receiver, that's a lot for someone like Amon-Ra St. Brown, who plays in 2 wide receiver sets, even though he's a slot player. So, like, at some point, they have to get him involved either as a full-time, like, if he was 65% snaps on both sides of the ball and he was awesome at it, I think that would potentially be worth it. But you can't do 25% of defensive snaps and then only play in the slot and expect to, like, change the outcome of games. Right. And like you said, the slot stuff, he's made a couple plays on the ball, but he's also allowing some receptions underneath, and he's missed a couple tackles. And I think he had like 1 highlight block in this last game, but on offense, I've also thought that he's been a liability in the blocking department too. And then obviously the pre-snap illegal plays as well. So
for a team that spoke every time they got on a microphone and were asked about that, oh, we have a great plan for him, the plan's going to be fantastic. I don't know what the plan is. You know, it feels like they've already changed the plan through 4 weeks, where he played offense in week 1. Then they had some, cornerback injuries. And so he played more cornerback. They had really good matchups in terms of difficult wide receivers that they face. Yeah. But then in this one, how do you play 8 defensive snaps and then just 1 more, and then you don't play more defense, and then you're only playing 38 of 68 on offense? Like, at some point, they have to get their money's worth. And I understand if that's going to be sophomore year, his 3rd year, all that type of stuff. But to trade all of that, you need to get an impact in your rookie season in year 1. And there's plenty of season to go. And to me, he's plenty talented for it to work. But through 4 weeks, as much as I like Travis Hunter, that trade is not even close to being paid off at this moment.
Yeah, no, definitely not. I do think the defensive snap thing, like, if you want to try to make a prediction, is it just like when they have really good wide receivers on the other team, he's just going to play more corner? Because
it's like they changed their mind after 9 snaps in this game.
Yeah. I don't know. They had that weird quote after the game too. So I think they're trying to figure this whole thing out. But Liam Cohen told us, like, he is a slot wide receiver on offense. Right. And that's what it's been, So, like, the only kind of question mark right now is how many snaps is he playing on defense in addition to the slot only stuff? Because we have not seen him out in 2 wide receiver sets yet. So,
and then to me, if he only focused on slot wide receiver, just to go back to this point, then that's still not enough.
No.
Like, if he only plays wide receiver, which I would love for him to only play wide receiver, he needs to be out there in 2 wide receiver sets. It's pretty easy.
Yeah. I wish they would have just drafted him at wide receiver, and he has to learn the entire offensive playbook, and then he'll play a couple snaps at corner, and like that would have been fun. And then the sophomore year, now he's playing 25% of the corner snaps. That's what I wanted this to happen. It's not.
But even that idea almost went that way in this game, where, again, he played the first series, but then he didn't check in on the second series on defense until 3rd and 2. They asked him to go out there and match up against Ricky Pearsall, and Ricky Pearsall routes him up on a stop route, and then he allows a first down, and they take him out. So, like, to me, it's probably really tough for a guy to focus on offense. I'm not saying he is, but theoretically, someone to focus on offense and then, go out there on 3rd downs, because that was a discussion point this summer, and then go play against their top corner when you're cold on that side, and then not give up a reception for a first down as he just did in this game.
And I'll say this, Jacksonville's defense has been elite. So
Yes.
maybe just say, we got enough dudes. We hit on Devin Lloyd's haven't played out his mind. Jordan Lewis has been great. Tyson Campbell's been great. You got the 2 edge rushers. F it. We need some help on that wide receiver.
That's what I'm saying, because the wide receiver stuff is the most questionable aspect of everything. As we talked about on Sunday night, they still aren't lining up properly. They're still being late to the football. They're still getting false starts or delay of games, and they're still getting legal shifts. It was very notable to me. Again, the Brian Thomas Jr. usage is still very high. It is wide receiver 12 in expected points, according to your models. Once again, that is not a Shane Waldron issue. It's a Brian Thomas Jr. catching the football issue that he's wide receiver 45 or whatever it is at this point. They did ask him to only run basically outside breaking routes, or all of his targets were there, instead of working in the trash in the middle of the field. And that stood out to me when going back and watching this game.
My Brian Thomas note for this week, he's had 1 screen this year. And I think that was the screen where he and Travis Hunter both tried to block. So I think they were trying to call that a Brian Thomas screen because he did not catch it. Last year, he had 18 receptions on 18 targets in the screen department. We have not seen that. And that matters only a little bit. Like, there's getting him like on end around stuff, but like that's one area where if you wanted to get Brian Thomas some free receptions, get his confidence back up, maybe throw him a couple screens. But as we saw with Liam Cohen last year with the Bucs, the screens are going to the backs, which have been awesome. Like, anyone complaining about the Bashal 2 and Travis Etienne production? Nobody is.
Nope.
And then Travis Hunter, he's also getting a bunch of screen because he barely knows the playbook, and like that's the one thing that he might be able to do. So we're getting squeezed on the Brian Thomas screen reception. But yeah, he needs to catch the ball, and then there'll be a couple games just man coverage, crossing route, go ball stuff where you're going to get your huge explosives. But yeah, they're working through this. Like you said, I like the idea 100% wide receiver snaps and let the other defensive players just continue to win football games.
It seems kind of simple, and yet we're not in the building, so we can't say it. I mean, yeah, Parker Washington played 85% of snaps last week, and you didn't spend 2 first rounders and a 2nd round pick to go and get Parker Washington. Meanwhile, Travis Hunter's at 56. I understand, again, that he's only learning slot, but like, just to dial this back and rewind, was it best for him to only learn slot? That's the question here. Yeah. When, by the way, he played outside last year for Colorado.
Yep. I know. I know, it's frustrating. And by the way, they're all 3-1. I'm sure the comments.
Yeah, and they're good.
So like, they're 3-1. Like, oh, look at all these fantasy nerds like nitpicking everything. It's like, well,
right.
Like you're not going to have 19 interceptions.
Correct.
Every
13
month.
turnovers through 4 games.
It's wild.
I think they only had 8 turnovers all of last year or something like that. It's nuts. Final note I had is the other question that we had for this team. It's so funny that the questions we had for them on the defense and all that stuff, they're turning out to be the strengths. The rushing game and specifically the offensive line has been just amazing when it comes to run blocking. Travis Etienne is 2nd in the NFL with 2.1 yards before contact so far. And giving him these runways and obviously his vision to get those runways too is a huge win right now for this rushing team.
Yeah. That little move that he made at the 2nd level was
3rd
spicy.
level.
I mean, yeah. Travis Etienne he looks really good right now. Like, I don't know what else to say. He looks like he did in his first couple seasons before last year when he was dealing with that hamstring injury.
Okay, let's go to the Las Vegas Raiders. Speaking of giving your running back room to run, Ashton Jeanty finally got just a little bit. Again, prior to week 4, he was averaging negative 0.1 yards before contact. In week 4, when he went for over 100 yards and multiple touchdowns, he was given 0.7 yards of contact. Now, I really hope that that wasn't just a 1-week wonder, but it might be. Not because of Ashton Jeanty. He's an electric individual talent, but they just placed Colton Miller, their left tackle that they gave a bump to this offseason, on injured reserve with at least a high ankle sprain and maybe more injuries on top of that. So if you look at many of the best Ashton Jeanty runs, they were off that left side. So while, again, there's no issues I have with Ashton Jeanty as an individual, this does make me concerned that we'll have a few more performances like the opening 3 weeks ahead.
Yeah, he was still getting smacked behind the line of scrimmage on most of his runs this last game. He just had like the one that there was some space and he made the most out of it, obviously. So collectively they're 25th in running back usage. He played a little bit more in the pass game, and he caught both of his passes for touchdowns. So like obviously that's really helpful from that, but that's not like super sticky. So yeah, the Colton Miller stuff, that's a big deal because like that was like the one guy from like the offseason. They're like, all right, we have our left tackle. We're learning about DJ Glaze at right tackle. We've got 3 different options, none of them good, obviously. And the interior, we're going to figure this thing out. Like all of a sudden now there goes like the one guy that you can count on. And on top of that, like I'll take a huge L on Geno Smith. Like I don't know what the hell's happening this year. Like he's just throwing the ball into harm's way multiple times.
He targeted Jacoby Myers in all 3 interceptions. Like one of them was a great play, but he just like isn't anticipating how quick Kevin Byard is at closing passes. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, there was like, if you want to like really kind of nitpick some of them, like there was some like, what the hell is that safety even doing over there? That's like not even his responsibilities. But then the other one, the crossing route was just, he just missed through it. So and obviously he's going to be dealing with, out the left tackle. So like the Raiders have been explosive through the air, and like that's how they've hung in there. The down to down consistency is like not there. They've had like some chunk plays through the air, mixing with some interceptions, mixing with the lone Ashton Genty stuff. So this is gonna be one of the worst offenses in the league. Like it's without Colton Miller, like they really need to get Brock Bowers like up to speed, and maybe he's the answer to like calm everything down. Is like more underneath stuff to Brock Bowers as his knee starts to feel a little bit better. But yeah, the Colton Miller stuff, that's a big deal.
Okay, let's talk about Brock Bowers, because at this point last year, he was the tight end 4 in points per game with 8.2. Through 4 weeks this year, he is much lower than the tight end 4. He is the tight end 13 at also 8.5 points per game. So there are some differences when you look at the underlying metrics in terms of the Raiders with Chip Kelly are throwing it 6 fewer times per game than the Raiders did all of last season. And then also his target share, because you have Jacoby Myers, because you have running backs, because you have Trey Tucker, has dropped, I think, about like 12%. And those really add up on top of the quarterback being Geno Smith and wanting to throw the football down the field.
Yeah.
And to me, this is the biggest thing versus Aiden O'Connell, who didn't want to throw the football beyond 8 yards last year.
Yeah, that always was in the back of my mind with the Brock Bowers stuff. Is Geno's an upgrade for the offense and like how many yards and not even yards, just like how many points you're expected to score, but he's just going to get there in like different ways. And that kind of explains what Trey Tucker's done. So things will get better. Like the bottom is in for Brock Bowers. Like he's clearly been playing through an injury, and that will get better each and every week, I hope. But yeah, like the Raiders, I think last year were like top 5 in completions as a team. Like they were throwing the ball a ton in garbage time to Brock Bowers relentlessly. And I think this offense is not going to be as focused as that. Now, I do think if the Brock Bowers team is 1-3, 0-4, I would be like trying to trade for him. And I would still rank him as the tight end 2 for the rest of the season very easily. But at a second round value, I wouldn't pay a second round value price tag. I would draft him 36th overall if drafts are happening today.
Yeah. I totally misspoke on the scoring stuff before, by the way. Hunter Henry's at like 11.5. Jake Ferguson's at 11.3 versus the guys that were at 14, 15 previously. Mm-hmm. Okay. LA Chargers, more injuries. Joe Alt out for weeks at left tackle. Justin Herbert was getting beaten up in the pocket. And Hayden, how did Greg Roman respond? By throwing the football more than ever.
Double down. We're just going to keep throwing the ball. I looked into that because they're easily number 1 in neutral pass rate. That's held the entire season, but we're talking about like outlier stuff at this point. I was like, oh, maybe they're like throwing a bunch of screens and stuff. Nope. Fewest amount of screens in the league. So it's all on Justin Herbert, now behind one of the worst offensive lines easily without both of their left tackle and right tackle. I mean, it's all on Justin Herbert. It makes me nervous about like his health and stuff moving forward. Now he's so dang good that I think that they're going to be still be able to move the ball. But yeah, if Colton Miller's a big deal, Joe Alt's even a bigger deal.
Does this make you want to ding expectations for an incredible duo that we have so far in Quentin Johnson as the wide receiver 4 overall, Keenan Allen as the wide receiver 14 overall, and then Ladd McConkey? You got to scroll all the way down. I can't even find him at this point.
Wide receiver 54
as the wide receiver 62 overall.
Yeah. I mean, yes, my answer is I'm lowering expectations without Joe Alt for this offense. And with the Ladd McConkey stuff, I went back and just watched him this last week. He's just not as good as he was last year. I hate for it to be as simple as that, but there was multiple plays that he could have made. He had like, you can count it 3 drops from this last game. And unfortunately, like the interception, like that was going to be a rub route for him. And he and I think it was Tyler Conklin collide. And then all of a sudden, like all those things were just open for Ladd McConkey, and he was catching everything. He still looks really fast, and I think that he's a great route runner still, but the catch point stuff has been a little bit worse than usual. And I also think that all those like dig routes that he was winning on last year, well, now you have Keenan Allen in the zone over there. You're getting more Quentin Johnson post routes and stuff. So I think you're losing at the margins in terms of target share. Then he just like has not played as well through 4 weeks, and like that could easily turn around the rest of the season. But like I think it was fair to say that he was dominant on tape last year, and then this year he's been very average.
As we always talk about, like progression is not linear for these young guys. There's going to be some dips down at some point, and then they'll go back up on the upward trend. And then as we always talk about with Ladd, tight red zone stuff, that's just not his area, and it hasn't been. He's just not going to get as many red zone targets or end zone targets as Quentin Johnson or Keenan Allen. I will add, again, these things can shift. It's the Washington Commanders defense and then the Miami Dolphins defense the next 2 weeks. So again, things change like this in fantasy football. You are right until you're wrong, and you're wrong until you're right. And these types of games can change narratives quite quickly, I feel.
Yep. And then for Quentin Johnson, real quick, that's 24% targets, and like they're downfield and in the end zone for a lot of them. So he's as real as it gets.
Yep. I just wanted to bring up for the Chargers, Sam Hoppen has a great chart, and I'm sure Weaves is putting it on there. Yeah. Quentin Johnson's at 25%. Keenan Allen's at 24.3%. And then Ladd McConkey's at like 18.8 in terms of target share. So, okay. Next up is the LA Rams. Really good football team. I'm not sure if there's any more to add other than this same chart from Sam Hoppen. Puka Nacua has a ridiculous 37.6% target share, which, it's why he's the wide receiver 1 on top of just being an incredible football player. But then, questions that we get during draft season of, well, why are you ranking this team's wide receiver 2 ahead of other teams' wide receiver 1s? It bears itself out in terms of looking at Devontae Adams stuff, where he has like a 26.5% target share. And then the LA Rams are top 4 in terms of wide receiver usage. So that naturally, when you combine those two together, places him as a better target and a better fantasy option than true wide receiver 1s on other teams.
Yeah, and Stafford's playing out of his mind, and they're coming down with everything. So right now the Rams on their deep targets are completing the highest rate of them in the NFL. And yeah, both these guys are just going to continue to eat as long as these guys stay healthy. So it's the Chargers number 1 in usage for the wide receivers. The Rams are number 2, then the Dallas Cowboys at 3rd overall. So yeah, these guys are just automatic plays. And like you pointed out, Tutu Atwell takes advantage of only having 10 guys on the field for the game winner. So they got lucky there, but that was cool to see. Yeah, I mean, like Puka right now, just for context, like everyone knows how good he is. He's on pace to have 30 more receptions than the NFL record. I mean, what are we doing here?
And then, yeah, I mean, the running backs are still changing much more than they did last season. They were getting a ton of push in this game. This is one of those games, Hayden, that if Blake Corum didn't exist and Kyron Williams got all of it, he would have easily cleared 100 yards. He was getting 6, 7 yards, 8 yards a pop. And yet when they put in Blake Corum, I'm not saying it's a negative at all. Like he's really good when he pops in there. He just skims off 30% of the volume or whatever from Kyron Williams. And because of that, Kyron Williams at this point is running back 17 on the season.
So last week, it was a season low for expected points for Kyron Williams. At the same time, a season high for Blake Corum. So Sean McVay is keeping his word right now. So yeah, Kyron's the wide receiver 17 or the running back 17 on running back 12 usage. And over the last couple weeks, those would be kind of dwindling too. So Kyron's still, no doubt about it, a really nice RB2, but the days of him being, I think, a top 10 running back are no longer there with Blake Corum taking over some some of the issues. Also, the Rams are doing all of this with, I think, a bad offensive line. They're dealing with injuries. Like all of their starters are like just on the injury report. Some of them play, some of them don't, depending on the week. So this is a Sean McVay, Matthew Stafford, Puka, Devontae Adams situation. It is, those four guys are just balling.
It is one of those that if they somehow do get healthy and stay healthy, though, in December and beyond, Rams are a Super Bowl caliber team in the NFC.
Yep.
Easy.
Yep.
Not easy, but you know what we mean.
No, they are.
Minnesota Vikings. Yeah. Minnesota Vikings are next. I mean, it feels like every single team we're going to talk about here today, offensive line injuries. And these are massive ones here for the Vikings. Ryan Kelly left with a concussion. Then their right tackle, Brian O'Neill, who's been a mainstay on that side coming out of Pitt, was a former tight end, I believe. Remember him at the Senior Bowl, is dealing with an MCL injury. And they were also missing, their other rookie guard on top of this. And then Christian Darrisaw just came back from injury. What we got was, I think high variance is the perfect definition of it. When watching the Carson Wentz game, there were some really good things and he was letting it rip on some big downfield passes. Mm-hmm. And then there were other occasions where we saw the trebuchet back in the league and he plants his 2 feet down and has blinders on with all the pressure around him and he makes some negative plays on top of it. But maybe KOC wants to live in that high variance world because it creates some of those explosives down the field.
Yeah, once the backup center and the backup right tackle were in, that was a major issue. So those guys, both of them, the backups gave up pressures and turned into sacks. And then Carson Wentz was hot on multiple other dropbacks where he either just took the sack or try to you see this Carson Wentz move where he tries to dip under it. Like what? Yeah. That's not going to work.
He always has done that.
Yeah, it's wild. And then he'll flush out of the pocket, throw the ball out of bounds because he's just hot. And instead of trying to hit the hot route, he just oh, I'm hot. I'm taking a sack. I'm throwing the ball into the red area. So there was some definite, very negative plays. And they threw the ball over the middle and down the field at a very nice rate this game. Now, the Steelers were nowhere near, Justin Jefferson for half the game. I could not believe that. And then the Jordan Addison, you get free production because of a coverage bust. So like you said, there was some good and some very clear bad, and McCarthy wasn't handling pressure well, and Carson Wentz has never handled pressure well. So if your right guard, center, and then right tackle are not going to be out there, now you just have last year's offense where Sam Darnold was handling pressure fairly well, with two guys that can't. So I don't know, man. I'm a little bit nervous with the offensive line issues.
Yeah. And then even when I was watching that game, Jordan Mason looked awesome. And then you look in the stat book and it's Jordan Mason at 74 yards on 20 touches or something like that. And it's because if you can't block it up, it just makes life hell on a series in, series out basis. So, I mean, Jordan Mason's usage is going to be super, super nice when he owns the backfield. I know Xavier Scott gets in there for some catches and things, but it's fun to watch Jordan Mason run. I just wish it was on an offense that had their full complement of offensive linemen.
Yeah. I think everyone just takes a hit, and then in this one, they were down big. So Jordan Addison gets home because the coverage bust, and because they're trailing a lot, but he's at a 17% target share. So once those things kind of regress a little bit, he's not going to have the same production. And then I think interesting that TJ Hawkins is not played very well,
right.
He's gotten some opportunities, but they were asking him to chip a bunch. So if you have TJ Hawkinson, I think there's guys on the waiver wire and then some other, make a trade for somebody because he's gonna have to chip or to help out his backup right tackle, and then just out in the flats, and I'm not sure if I've seen him make a bunch of guys miss in the last couple of years.
Also, am I allowed to ask why they trade a 5th round pick for Adam Thielen, who has 4 catches for 37 yards and plays 16% of snaps right now?
Yeah, you are allowed to ask that.
What was the point?
Yeah.
Okay. New England Patriots are next. Fun team. I actually want to bring up another old wide receiver who is Adam Thielen's former teammate in Stephon Diggs, because this was easily, and I mean easily, his most productive game. Now, if you just look at the sheet, it says he only played 63% of snaps, which is a season high, but doesn't sound like that much. And the context is it would have been far more if this game was at all competitive, because he only played 1 snap in the 4th quarter when it was a blowout. So again, in a tighter game, that could have been all the way back up to 80% snaps here for Stephon Diggs. And he would have been easily among the highest waiver ads if he had been dropped in your leagues.
90% routes if you cut out the 4th quarter. So quarters 1 through 3, 90% routes, season high in production. And I was complaining that they did not have a wide receiver that can win downfield. And there was 2 man coverage wins from Stephon Diggs in 2 different ways against man coverage down the field for chunk gains. And then you also had a 1 versus zone as well. So season high in production, 12.1 expected fantasy points, 90% routes, all season high. And the Drake May numbers with Josh McDaniels are very promising. Like he's, they're moving the football, success rate's really high, and that they're doing it without a consistent wide receiver 1. And now if you get that, I think you're going to have a couple more explosive plays. So Drake Mays handles himself well. The offensive line is playing better than I would have expected with how many, young players or really old players across the offensive line. So yeah, this is just like classic Josh McDaniel stuff. Is like, I've been calling plays for 2 decades in the league. Like I know what I'm doing here. And then Drake Mays, he's not even scrambling, like it's not like he's like, they kind of cut out the BS stuff of Drake May. It's just like, oh, we're just going to play normal football and keep moving the chains.
It might be the quietest quarterback 4 performance on the season that we've seen in quite some time. He's quarterback 4 in scoring right now.
Yeah, he's really good.
Really good. I'm with you.
Really good.
Now, what is also vintage Josh McDaniels is multiple running backs. In this game, Ramondre Stevenson, 57%, Trevion Henderson, 31%, Antonio Gibson, 18%. With all 3 healthy, Hayden, it doesn't seem like that is going to change, that they'll split things 3 different ways. It did seem like certain guys got certain drives, as we see with that Hendo one, and then he got a goal line touchdown. But as we see with some other teams, when they sub in a certain player near the goal line, that is definitely not the case here. It's just like, hey, whoever's kind of on the field, and they get it. Because I was really excited about that first Trevion Henderson touchdown, and then Antonio Gibson gets the next one.
Gibson got 2 other goals. He got 2 goal line carries on separate drives, and we know that Ramondre, who's bigger than both of these dudes, is gonna get his. It's a full blown rotation. I don't know what we're supposed to do here. These guys are gonna have big games randomly, like we see some of the shot plays in the pass game and double moves and stuff. And Trevion Henderson will have a 50-yard touchdown on them. I am not gonna be able to predict when it's gonna happen. So in the meantime, Ramondre's the running back 33 in usage, Henderson's the running back 37, and then Gibson's behind that, but still fairly relevant. So I don't know, man. They're going to be during bye weeks. You can put them into your flex, and you're going to cross your fingers and hope. But it's good news that the Patriots offense is probably better than most people expect. Yeah,
and it's a long season. We will see what happens. I don't think anyone, like, they all have shown warts at some point this year, and so they are all playing still.
Yes.
Next up for the Bills, who again gave up a ton of rushing yards in week 1, then have kind of shut it down a little bit since then. The Saints, and then the Titans over the next 3 weeks. So there should be some fun Patriots games.
The Hunter Henry touchdown, you don't see as many fluky touchdowns from a tight end than that.
He was outrunning J.C. Horn to the end zone.
J.C. Horn he was trying to blame everybody else while trying to change. I'm like, you could just go tackle him, and just decided not to. It was that play. I was like, what is going on with Carolina?
Yeah, man. That's what I'm telling you. It's not good. I will add, though, and we talked about this on the show, that Drake May, when he was mic'd up for a practice, said that Hunter Henry was on his first ever fantasy football championship team, and now he's gotten Hunter Henry to tight end 1 status this season so far, which is pretty sweet.
It is cool.
I thought Josh McDaniels was going to invest in a tight end in this tight end draft that was so loaded, and then he didn't. And then I should have immediately, like I did last year, say, oh, this is going to be a Hunter Henry season. But, I was just a year early.
Yeah.
Never late, just early.
Yeah, Hooper gets involved too. It's backs up until this last game. It's been backs and tight ends, and they've still been moving the chain. So I'm very optimistic about Steph Diggs. I think there's a chance that Steph Diggs could have an underrated believe what we just saw this last game. I think that there's a chance he can go on a very real run for the rest of the year.
I think he's a really nice trade candidate out there. I'm going to bring that up on Thursday's show as well.
Nice.
Okay, let's talk about the New Orleans Saints. We mentioned feisty every single week. My only concern with them is if you keep losing, how long does that competitiveness last? Because they are still fighting in these fourth quarters. They're still picking up yards in these fourth quarters. That's different when you're 0-3 or 0-4 versus 0-12. And the other talking point is that this was easily Kendre Miller's best game. He was running through tackles. He was creating yards on his own. Hasn't been a great Alvin Kamara season so far. He's definitely not getting as much work in the passing game. I am not saying they're going to trade Alvin Kamara. I'm not saying he's going to get benched at all, but maybe this just turns into much more of a 50-50 split because, versus Dennis Allen, like this team, Kellen Moore can actually see that Kendre Miller has talent and they want to utilize it.
Yeah, he's playing early and often and has looked good. And then on the flip side with Alvin Kamara, he is just not ripping off like the first down 10-yard gains, the explosive plays. It's been, 3 yards in a cloud of dust. And the Saints offensive line, while they invested into it heavily over the last couple of years, they're all injured right now. So it's like not even a good offensive line too. So I'm hoping we get Alvin Kamara traded. Like that would just make most sense for everybody involved. Like Alvin Kamara on a contender, the Saints get a draft pick. They got to see what they have with Kendre Miller, who's looked all right. Like, why shouldn't this happen? And also it's not just like the same internal hire that the Saints have had at head coach year after year after year after year. Like this is like new fresh eyes. And he might just be like, what are we doing? We obviously should start trading away some of the old guys that have been on the Saints forever. And we have never seen that happen. But I do think they did it with last year with Marshawn Lattimore. And like, why wouldn't you trade Alvin Kamara in a week or two?
We have seen these backups graduate into starting jobs, like with what happened with Woody Marks. And we were a couple weeks ahead of that one. Kendre Miller, we should probably add to that list. Try to be a couple weeks early rather than have to spend, 100% of your fab on him. Anything you want to say about the tight ends or the wide receivers in this team, or is that pretty evident? I mean, Chris Olave is getting the vast majority of routes and targets, and then it's Juwan Johnson. And then behind that, it's Rashid Shaheed. So while we like Rashid Shaheed, it's pretty evident he's lower on the target totem pole than Olave and then Juwan Johnson.
He is like even Shaheed though, because it's a scam. He's the wide receiver 39 and wide receiver 33 usage, and he's had over 8.7 expected points in all 4 games. Like he's holding the line. They just need we need to remove one of these guys back from the offense. Other note, Taysom Hill and Foster Moreau are practicing right now. If you want to sell high on Juwan Johnson,
how dare you?
You take your ROI and you keep it moving. If you had like Tucker Kraft and you bid on Juwan Johnson, I think that he's a trade candidate.
Philadelphia Eagles. And it's time for your least favorite comments of the week. Hey, when I went back and watched this game and the dropbacks, I was looking, I was like, I've seen Jalen Hurts drop back 11 times in the second half, and I haven't seen a single Philadelphia Eagle catch a football. They didn't complete a single pass in the second half. A single pass.
I know.
And then you look at it, another great Sam Hoppen chart. The Eagles have the highest percentage of 3-and-outs across the NFL right now, over 45% of the time. That's worse than the Titans. That's worse than the Bengals. It hasn't mattered. They are winning a ton of football games. And then we can get into the running game stuff on top of it too.
They don't turn the ball over, and then they have some explosive plays. Like that's why, they're hanging in there, and they've had some clutch moments. It's obviously not sustainable. They have to play better on offense than what they currently are playing. So yeah, that's that. And then the Saquon Barkley stuff is like, he's not ripping off the big play as he was previously.
And it's not even close.
No.
His longest run so far is of 16 yards. Our buddy Connor Allen pointed this out. Just 3 games last year, he didn't have a run of at least 18 yards. And he's already gone 4 games of that so far. Okay. Last 2 seasons, this team was obviously first in yards created before contact. This year, they're 16th. They're average. And that's kind of makes Saquon Barkley's rushing numbers average on top of it. This can change at any point, but through 4 weeks, it is definitely going in the direction of, hey, this guy had 400 touches last year, and you are cutting off the explosiveness or even, the mid explosiveness off his game.
Yeah. I think also just like the offensive line's not nearly as good. Back
totally.
They're new right guard, Lane Johnson in and out at right tackle, Dickerson in and out of the lineup playing through a back injury. Jordan Mailata was complaining that like the offensive line is just like not up to par. He's like, this is not a Saquon Barkley issue. And I largely think that is true. So I think they'll sort of figure it out, but they ran very hot last year on like how healthy and dominant the offensive line was.
I will add, we just brought up not completing passes or sustaining drives and all this type of stuff, lack of explosives. And the bottoming out basically of Saquon Barkley is running back 13 at this moment. Like we're talking about bottoming out at other round 1 and round 2 picks in fantasy football. If the worst you're getting is running back 13, which to me, this can improve as the season goes along when they, new play caller, better offensive line play and all that type of stuff. I'm not like panicking on the Saquon stuff. I still think it can get there in the second half of the season for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So, and like Dallas Goedert, 2 flick touchdowns at the goal line and stuff. Like eventually that will iron itself out. But yeah, his best play on offense was like that, the end around off the tush push variant for Saquon Barkley. So yes, it has not gone well. I also mentioned this, the AJ Brown stuff from last week. He got the ball like thrown to him a lot. A couple of them definitely sailed out of bounds. I've seen better effort and like raw speed out of AJ Brown too. So like, sometimes the divas like take it a little bit too far, and I hope they can get him on more crossing routes and less stop routes and stuff. But he was like not coming back to the ball at all. He just had a very odd season.
So Broncos defense next for this team, and that's a potential tight game. And then you have the Giants after that, then the Vikings, and then the Giants again, and then the Packers. So, I think how some people discuss the Eagles, it's like, oh, they'll just flip the switch when they want to. But like, I know they did in week 3, but like at some point, like just why not flip it and play good football every time?
I know. I agree. Yeah, I think probably offensive coordinator not nearly as good as it was in the last couple seasons, and still they have not lost when everyone's been healthy.
Right. It's just frustrating because they have really good players and they should play good football.
Well, yeah, AJ Brown's the wide receiver 50 and Devontae Smith's the wide receiver 46.
Right, and Saquon's the running back 14.
Right, and then Dallas Goedert's he's the guy eating, and he's hard to predict.
Okay, Pittsburgh Steelers. You and I in the wide receiver show and just talking about DK Metcalf did not expect the DK Metcalf stat line. Then I went and watched the game, and he had 5 catches, which, is on the pretty high end for DK Metcalf. Mm-hmm. And then the 80-yarder and that touchdown obviously changed the entire thing. To me, Hayden, I'm not sure if you watched it. To me, he was the answer for Aaron Rodgers on a lot of the hot or pressure looks that the Vikings threw at him that last season with the Jets, Aaron Rodgers had 0 answers for. And that was smart. Rather than lining him up on the sideline, they lined him up very tight to the formation, and Rodgers just flicked it to him. And then this Vikings defense just isn't tackling nearly as well as it did last year.
Yep.
And you have a big guy who can run a 4.29 and goodbye. He's gone.
Yeah, this is like brand new usage for DK Metcalf. His ADOT's at 6.4 yards. If you compare that to just like the other like biggest changes in ADOT year after year, it's like DK Metcalf is standing out where his usage is completely different. And that was the pre-snap RPO stuff where there's like throw a screen to him, like one step, throw it out to him, the little slot sitting in zone. And then obviously the splash play was just Harrison Smith could not make that tackle and he's off for the races. So yeah, like the usage, he's been really good this year, but he is wide receiver 52 in expected points because everything's like closer to the line of scrimmage. The offense is just kind of unique right now. So it's like not Arthur Smithian. It's not Aaron Rodgers-y fully. It's getting more closer to like the Aaron Rodgers format than like the Arthur Smith under center play action downfield stuff. So cool to see. He's like still extremely fast. If we're getting like a couple slant routes and stuff underneath to kind of like buoy his floor, that's obviously good.
John Ledyard pointed this out, that Aaron Rodgers' current ADOT is at 5.2 yards. The next closest in the league is at 6.4, which is Kyler Murray. Back to 2006, according to PFF, only one quarterback has ever had an ADOT lower than 6. Again, that is Aaron Rodgers at 5.2.
Yeah.
And that was Alex Smith with 5.9. So Rodgers is still 0.7 shorter than that at this point. So there's
some similarities between those two quarterbacks. Now they say it.
Yeah. He's just getting the football out as quickly as possible. All right. San Francisco 49ers, MASH unit, short week. Who knows who is playing between Ricky Pearsall and Jawan Jennings and Brock Purdy, all dealing with a multitude of things. Meanwhile, CMC's blood sacrifice has allowed him to be the healthiest player in the NFL despite touching the football the most.
It just makes like whenever you feel confident about who's going to get injured before the season starts, like just know that you don't. Just know that you don't. And like Christian McCaffrey can get hurt this next week, like definitely possible. I don't know who's going to play. I don't know how to handicap this game at all. Ricky Pearsall has like a quote unstable knee, which is usually a PCL injury, which is what Brock Bowers has like been playing through. So even if he suits up, I don't know if he's going to be the same. I don't know if you went back and watched the Brock Purdy stuff, but he's like very clearly not himself with his toe injury, and he said that he's sore. And then Juwan Jennings took one of the shots of the year to his ribs, and I don't know if he's going to play. Probably will, but yeah, I have no idea what to do here.
I mean, there's really nothing we can do. We will talk about it on tomorrow's show in the running back rankings. But even at that point, like even if these guys don't practice, one or none or 3 of them might suit up on Thursday. Like, I kind of hate it when these really good teams play on Thursday, even though if I want to watch a good game, because at this point in the season, they're injured and you have to make massive lineup decisions an hour before, and we don't get it covered on the show, basically.
Yeah. One, just like, I was just building some random charts and like this one stood out. This is just the 2-minute drill targets this year. Christian McCaffrey has 14 of them. I mean, nobody else is even close to that. So the Christian McCaffrey in the 2-minute drill is like a free, well,
he's a better pass catcher than runner at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's true. That is the other thing that is not going to change about this 49ers team. This offensive line is bad. Like Trent Williams is like not the all-pro Trent Williams, and he's a Pro Bowl-ish level Trent Williams. And the rest of the offensive line, which lost like Aaron Banks and depth pieces, and other players are playing through injury, and we've been begging them to draft a center and right tackle, and they haven't. It's just like not an elite offensive line. Like Shanahan's like made the most out of bad offensive lines, but if we're not getting the same Trent Williams stuff, that's gonna matter at the margins. I don't know if there's any information we can glean from that, like, or anything we can do about that, but it's, I think, going to limit the 49ers chance of like competing in the NFC.
Well, you know who's about to return, hopefully from injury with all these guys banged up, is George Kittle in week 6. So,
but not Ayuk. We got like that weird thing about it, Brandon Ayuk, where he's like not close to returning yet, but I see him running. Like, I don't know. They're being weird.
Seattle Seahawks. Do you want me to go in a 1-minute Kenneth Walker monologue or okay?
Yeah, please.
Can you just turn the page to the running back usage overall? This will help me define the entire thing. All right. Because when we look at the running back usage chart, you see that Seattle is above average in that, right? So Kenneth Walker in all your drafts, and I know on Underdog, closed as running back 17. Okay. This is when beginning of September, bing, bang, boom. Fantasy draft season was over. So let's look at the running backs drafted ahead of him and after him to put some context on this. All right. Running back 15. Again, this is closing ADP. Trevion Henderson. He's a rookie and he's currently running back 35. And as we talked about, a 3-person timeshare at this moment. Running back 16. Breece Hall, currently running back 25, was in a huge split and was destined to be in a huge split until Braylon Allen's MCL. And he was losing high value touches, and we'll see how that changes. But again, running back 25 at this moment. Here's Kenneth Walker. Drafted as running back 17, your current running back 15. Okay. Chuba Hubbard, running back 18. He's running back 16 at this moment. But as we talked about, he's had his huge production in the receiving game, and the team isn't nearly as good as many of the others we're about to talk about. Alvin Kamara, he's currently the running back 26 after being selected as the running back 19. Very little receiving work. Running back 20, RJ Harvey, also a rookie, also running back 34. Running back 21, James Conner out for the season. Running back 22, DeAndre Swift. He's running back 24 on the year, despite being a true bell cow in his offense. Running back 23, Isaiah Pacheco. He's dust. He's running back 41. And then Tony Pollard, running back 24. He's running back 28 overall in the year, owning 90% of the work and the worst team in the NFL. So my point being, I understand it's extremely frustrating when you see a guy who's explosive, who is creating chunk gains out there on an NFL field, and he's not getting the goal line scores that is going to his running mate in Zach Charbonnet. But think of the pocket of the running backs that you drafted this player in. All the ones that I just mentioned. It's not the James Cook tier. It's not the Kyron Williams tier. It's not the group, Omarion Hampton, that was selected above him. It's this guy. It's this group that you were deciding between. And to me, I would rather have Kenneth Walker than anyone else on that list rest of season.
Yeah. And then last week, there was some Kenneth Walker madness where Charbonnet got some extra touches in there for classic Kenneth Walker stuff. But yeah, he's got a clear pathway. And like you said, he had 20 touches this last game. And then I'll make your point even more about just that range of draft picks is the wide receivers in that range too. So you can see Kenneth Walker, aside from Cortland Sutton, DK Metcalf, Devontae Smith, we'll see about Jalen Waddle, but Jamison Williams, Terrell McMillan, DJ Moore, some of the other rookies, Terry McLaurin, like these were the guys that you were drafting next to Kenneth Walker on top of that. Matthew Golden, Jerry Jeudy. So it has not been like a great round 4 or 5 turn just in general. So aside from George Pickens, who we were all over, he was like the guy that you wanted in that range.
Correct. So again, after week 1, we adjusted. This is going to be a split. That was very evident. But what we did get right is that Kenneth Walker fits this Clint Kubiak rushing scheme to a T. And you can see that in the big gains that he has. And I also read that like, well, Zach Charbonnet is the dependable player. He's the one that, and when you look at the underlying numbers, that's like not true. You know, his stuff rate in terms of getting negative yards or a 0-yard run, that's at 33%. Kenneth Walker's is at 23%. So yeah, does it look crazy when Kenneth Walker knows he can't get anything and so he runs in the opposite direction and picks up a 5-yard loss? 100%. But at the same time, he's just really good. Like, to me, he's a good player. And I would want to bank on a good player and a scheme that he fits really well in an offense, Hayden, that is like a well-oiled machine right now and is outperforming many expectations out there.
Yeah, this is all burying the lead. This is all Sam Darnold stuff, man. Like, he's playing very good football.
You can go in
man.
your monologue now if you want to.
I mean, look at any stat, watch Sam Darnold. It's not like in structure plays either. He's making plays by himself, and JSN's taking the leap, and like they don't even have a second person to throw the football to, and Sam Darnold's still like extremely efficient behind an offensive line that's like been mediocre at best. So yeah, I think the Sam Darnold stuff is helping everybody. But like you said, they have the same exact expected points per game. Charbonnet and Walker 10.8. Kenneth Walker's averaging 12.8 fantasy points, and Zach Charbonet's at 7.7. So it's a humongous efficiency gap between the two. So we'll see.
We mention it all the time in this episode of I don't know who this play caller is as an identity, what this team is trying to do offensively. It is so clear to see who the Seahawks want to be, and they're achieving it already right now. They do have some really tough games coming up. It's the Bucs, then the Jaguars, then the Texans, the Commanders after that, the Cardinals and the Rams. So it's going to be fun to watch the Seahawks team every single week. And this defense is a lot of fun. And then this offense knows who they are. And you can't say that across the league.
Playoff team to me.
I like it. Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Has it been confirmed that Bucky Irving was one of the names that got an MRI, or is that just kind of like speculation at this point?
No, he got an MRI. I haven't heard the, if it's a bad news or good news.
And by the way, he was electric. Obviously the catch down the sideline was awesome. He's just a fantastic player, making people miss in the open field. If he does miss time, I'm not saying he is, but if he does, I wonder how much of an expanded role Rachaad White is going to have, or if they get Sean Tucker more involved. I think they do, but we disagree on that.
Yeah. I mean, I think it'll be Rachaad White, clear lead back, and then Sean Tucker will play some. But yeah, who knows? They need the right guard and right tackle back to be fully themselves. We're really living on the edge with what Baker Mayfield was doing. Obviously, he had the scramble drill to Bucky Irving, and then throwing that deep pass to Emeka went through 4 defenders' fingertips to him. Aside from that, was not like the prettiest offense I've seen. So they're missing some bodies.
That was Chris Godwin's fault. Like, he was running his normal outbreakers and having these targets in tight windows, and he just wasn't catching the football. It was just rust to me. So maybe that can change immediately. Who knows?
He didn't look fast or slow. I thought his speed was like Chris Godwin and then, like you said, it was just credit to the Eagles. Both corners, Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, were just lights out in this one, and they were plucking the ball away, and Chris Godwin probably catches a couple of those if he was like not banged up. So he wasn't like I was like, oh my God, he's just limping and it's a disaster. But those were the difference in the game.
Tennessee Titans, 2 teams to go. Alec Ayomanor has officially overtaken Calvin Ridley in terms of team lead and target share. He's at 22%. Calvin Ridley's at 21%. I am searching for the first win for this team. They have the Cardinals, then the Raiders, maybe, then the Patriots, then the Colts, then the Chargers, then the Texans. It can get pretty rough here. I'm not sure if the light at the end of the tunnel is in sight. Is there anything you want to bring up here?
Sell Tony Pollard if you can. Tyjae Spears is coming back, and he has no room to lose any snaps at all. And then I'm looking. I'm like, Alec Ayomanor, the spreadsheets are all right. Like, he's the wide receiver 38, wide receiver 37 usage. You mentioned the target share. Have you guys seen a single play, where he has created separation and it has not been a scramble drill? Like, it's the same old crazy shit that we're seeing from Cam Ward throwing across the field to Alec Ayomanor. We've seen one highlight, one-handed play with a defender draped over him. They're just like not a sustainable part of this offense. They're trying to get some other rookies. Like Gunnar Helm's going to play a little bit more moving forward. We'll see. They just don't have any good players. Like,
Yeah.
They have a crazy defensive
They invested
tackle.
a ton of the offensive line, and that's more injured than they wanted it to be.
They have nobody good on the football team. Like that's
Jeffrey Simmons is sweet, but
him,
yes,
Simmons.
Devontae Swift is injured, but yeah. Other
And
than that,
the Texans forgot to block some Jeffrey Simmons on a couple plays. He's the only good player on the team.
Skip Holtz, who is the OC, but did not get play calling duties handed down to him by Brian Callahan, which is also a very questionable thing, was on the microphone and said that Gunnar Helm, who's their rookie tight end out of Texas, quote, "will see increased opportunities." This is massive for the 12 people who care about Chigo Okonkwo, because right now the Titans line up in 3 wide receiver sets 87% of the time. That means that if Gunnar Helm is just more of your prototypical Y tight end, then he's going to play over Chigo Okonkwo rather than next to him more often.
Yeah, he's a better blocker, but Gunnar Helm can't move in the receiving game really. So
he can have some sweet contested grabs though. He's got good hands.
Yeah, he's a big fella. Yeah, I mean, when they fire everybody, when they, like you said, they skipped over the offensive coordinator for play calling duties, and then the offensive line coach is the father of the head coach. So when they do decide to fire everybody,
it's going to be the replacements of coaches.
It's literally like the ball boy is going to be out there teaching the tight ends.
All right, I'm calling it. You ready? This is what happened last season with the Raiders, right? And so who stepped in? Scott and Norv Turner. I don't even know what Scott and Norv Turner are doing right now, but Scott and Norv Turner, I'm already calling this, are going to be the play calling duo for the Tennessee Titans at some point this year. And then Joe Brady takes over in 2026.
Yeah, I mean, that's the difficult decisions when they decide to fire everybody. Like literally, they're firing. Everybody's gonna say, "I'm done." Whoa.
Scott Turner, right now, that brings up a United States Secretary of Housing and Development, Scott Turner.
Which by the way, there's a lot more football coaches getting into that sector. If you haven't noticed,
Scott Turner is the passing game coordinator of the New York Jets, so that is not going to happen, Josh. Dang,
yeah,
I thought I was onto something there.
I thought you were gonna
but they're not throwing the football well either.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll close this out. It's been a 3-hour show with the Washington Commanders. Deebo Samuel, my guy, wide receiver 10 on the season. And Hayden, even me, the big advocate for Deebo, did not expect him on 4th down to burn a cornerback on a vertical route. And that's exactly what he did. It's like 2018 Deebo Samuel all over again that we got.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, he's played lights out. Like he looks incredible. This is a perfect scheme for him. And then with Terry McLaurin playing through injuries, and he's in like that downfield X receiver role, everything on the inbreakers and all that type of stuff is his. And then he's making some explosive plays down the field and then in the ground game too. So like he's an automatic play. Feel excellent about Deebo Samuel. Would take him over Terry McLaurin rest of the season, no problem. And then hopefully we get Jaden Daniels back this week. But Marcus Mariota has been playing. He's very, very good in this system, and like he's been holding the line in fantasy purposes and getting the ball to Deebo. Yeah, and then the running backs, like it's the most even committee. Like somebody paint me the picture on how Bill Krosky merit is going to matter. Like I'm waiting. Go for it.
I think no matter what, when you're watching this game, Bill looks the best when he's out there on the field. He leads the NFL right now in percentage of 5+ yard runs. Okay. I know he didn't get his first carry until 7:39 left in the second quarter, and then really didn't touch the football again until the second half. But this is just eye test stuff. He's the best runner on this team, and they were losing on every single one of his touches that he got in the second half. I think the pendulum has swung almost totally in the opposite direction in terms of fantasy football stuff, where he was a meme to open the season because his name's Bill. He's a 7th rounder. They trade away Brian Robinson Jr. because of it. Oh, he's going to be the starter. He's not even close to being the starter right now, like in terms of a lead ball carrier. But just when I'm watching it, I can see if they think that he's the best runner, and if he gets 50+% of the work, then he is going to be a big asset here. And to me, that is a possibility, and he's almost underrated in that outcome at this moment.
I think that outcome that you're outlining is like very possible, but they're 30th in expected points to the running backs collectively, and he's not going to play passing downs most likely. And I don't think that Chris Rodriguez goes to 0. I think he'll get down a little bit, and then Deebo and then Jaden Daniels. So like I think the pathway is absolutely there to be the running back 26. I'm waiting for the pathway to open up where he's the running back 18. And to me, we're still a long ways away. So he might, it comes down to sentiment. If people are done with the meme and stuff, then yeah, maybe he's a buy low. But I've always just been a little bit curious on how we're like really going to take this one off.
It's an interesting one to watch moving forward. Again, every single time it's only like 7 touches that we get. I turn it on. I'm like, dang, that's a cool dead leg move. That's a cool jump cut. He's making people miss. He's staying super patient. I just, at some point, believe that they're just going to lean into him a bit more. And then more of those touches equal, more 5-yard gains and those types of things. But who knows? Who knows? Okay. That does it.
Whew.
That was a good show. Hopefully you all enjoyed it. Again, Wednesdays, we have our running back rankings. Thursdays, the trade show, which is massive again this week. Fridays, wide receivers. Saturdays, quarterbacks and tight ends. And then we do it all over again on Sundays with the start sit show and then instant reaction. So again, the best way to support us is to go on Overdog and play pick'em or drafts, battle royales, whatever you fancy. And we added ladders on top of it. So go and try out all the new products.
To make the show even longer, I just wanted to mention there was a guy in our comments from Stats versus Film last week that said that we're being lazy and that we've like reached the YouTube cliff and we're just like not putting the effort in. I was like, what?
We're being lazy?
Somebody said that
there was a comment on that?
There was a comment. It was because we're not showing the film and there's reasons why we're not doing that. But they're like, oh, they're just not putting in the work anymore. I'm like, we are adding shows. This has got to be what, an hour, 2.5 hours of show. We have more shows than days of the week. Oh,
I didn't see that one.
Off. Oh,
I would have left a massive comment if I saw that one.
Oh, that pissed me off.
I would have clapped back.
Oh man, that got me.
We can be lazy if he wants us to.
Oh my goodness.
Maybe in a couple of years. We'll see. All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Up the Villa. Shout out Mosho and Weaves and Hayden. We'll talk to you soon. See you.